Part 320. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3205. Pudgy. An object suddenly appeared in the subspace and sprayed towards the leader of the Dark Guard who was about to arrive. What the hell? The opponent's morale was rising, but no matter what hindered him, a waste knife appeared in the darkness, and the knife struck at the projectile. This thing is neither big nor small. It is spherical in shape and exudes extremely profound power. After he finished slashing out the sword, he took a closer look and saw clearly what he was stabbing at. Tau heart. No, this is the kind of Tau heart I gave Qianshu. He didn't swallow the Tau heart. The leader of the Dark Guard's mind changed rapidly, and some bad thoughts arose. But it was too late to stop, so he simply continued to drop the knife neatly. No matter what, it was easy to open a Taoist heart with his own blade. Jia Yan was hiding behind the Taoist heart, so the sword could hurt him a little no matter what. That will determine who wins or loses. A strong person is very good at seizing opportunities. He didn't care why Jia Yan threw out this poisonous Taoist heart, but he was not afraid. He had the most contact with the corrosive power attached to this Taoist heart, and he knew very well that as long as he didn't swallow it, it would be useless to their guru. Nothing at all. Crack. Laugh. The waste knife came into contact with the heart of the Tao, and he was already expecting the result to be cut in two. But at the same time, he also saw that behind the Dao heart that was hundreds of kilometers away, Jia Yan's pair of deep eyes flashed with a treacherous smile that succeeded. Not good. Before the blade came into contact with the Taoist heart, he felt that the Taoist heart suddenly bloomed with brilliant brilliance. A burst of heaven-destroying energy burst out from within the Dao heart in front of him. Good. This is a method that Jia Yan has not used for a long time, Yin and Yang Dao explosives. Not using it for a long time does not mean that this method is no longer helpful to Jia Yan. On the contrary, as Jia Yan's Yin and Yang Dao has become more mature, the method of Yin and Yang Dao explosives has long been reborn from the oldest and rough techniques and has become a something closer to professional means. Since the Dao heart was something that could harm him, Jia Yan followed the opponent's plan and refined the Dao heart into Yin Yang Dao explosives. The effect. Rumble. The shocking explosion that changed the color of the situation began to expand from the contact point between the waste knife and the heart of the Tao, and swept out at a fixed point toward everything in front of it. At first, the power of the explosion was evenly matched with the contact surface of the waste. But within a billionth of a second, the explosion was like an overwhelming force, swallowing up the whole waste. Then it rushed towards the leader of the Dark Guard himself behind the waste knife. Damn it! The leader of the Dark Guard was filled with anger. Even though he had all kinds of means and many ways to hide his body, he couldn't use it in such a shocking explosion. After a huge muffled sound, a broken limb flew out of the empty space. His whole body fell to the ground. Boss! A Dark Guard rushed forward, but before he could get closer, he stopped in fear. It turned out that the amputated limb was in a state of being torn apart, at least half of the original body was damaged. The lumps of flesh and blood that filled the sky flew out at this moment, splattering the hall with blood like a crime scene. In fact, it is the scene of the execution. And he committed the crime in front of the most mysterious and most amazingly powerful Dark Guard in the dynasty. The one who killed them was their strongest leader. One strike. Well. Only at this moment did the onlookers react and couldn't help but step back. The leader of the Dark Guard said he was not the strongest in the dynasty, but he had reached the guru level anyway. The natural attribute of his Dao power lies in darkness. It can be said that the Dark Guard of the dynasty was set up because of it. For thousands of years, countless high-ranking officials and businessmen of the dynasty have been uneasy after hearing his name. They are because of the special nature of the talent. In many cases the action is silent, and the mode of action is also extremely light, which can be said to kill without leaving a trace. But such a top expert died here with one blow. Does this mean that the gap in strength between Jia Yan and Jia Yan is so great that it is unimaginable? Impossible. The small biological assassin who was about to join forces with the leader of the Dark Guard to subdue Jia Yan suddenly turned pale and immediately stopped his attack and retreated backwards. But he didn't expect that even this reaction was included in Jia Yan's calculations. An old god with a foot swept over in a whirlwind. You happen to be not that big, so give me a fight. Jia Yan happened to have no opponent of similar size, so he couldn't fight for 800 rounds at this time. The assassin creature had an ugly expression. It was swept away by Jia Yan again and had to return to Jia Yan's attack range. Afterwards, Jia Yan only made 2 attacks before he was disappointed and saw clearly the fundamentals of this small creature. Because they are small creatures in this world, their Dao power skills are all focused on how to assassinate them. They can't hit a target thousands of miles away. They don't even have much physical training, and they are extremely exhausted in close combat. What's more, his strength is not as good as that of ordinary masters. As a result, even Jia Yan's 2 probing attacks were dangerous. The Jew of extreme chaos. Puff. Jia Yan was a little disappointed and pierced the small biological powerhouse with his feet. You dare. A figure happened to enter outside the door, and his expression was instantly locked on Jia Yan. He looked down at the body of the Dark Guard leader that was broken into countless pieces on the ground, and then at the small biological assassin cut in half by one of Jia Yan's feet. In the solemn moment, he did not retreat but advanced, waving his huge fist. This is a powerful guru-level master born from an intermarriage with the giants. The foundation of the dynasty is a descendant who is related to the giants. Even the royal family is the same. However, they do not admit their relationship with the giants. Instead, they are smearing the giants, saying that they are barbarians who drink hair and drink blood. They are not allowed to do so. The pure-blooded giants entered the court. On the contrary, if you attack this strong man with giant blood, you will be treated politely. Before the punch came, flying sand and rocks were already coming towards his face. When one of Jia Yan's feet turned into azure blue, and after a head-on collision, Jia Yan was slapped with such terrifying force that a wall of the Chamber of Commerce collapsed, and he flew millions of kilometers away. Smoke and dust billowed from the ruins, and there was no movement for a long time. Isn't this possible? The half-giant master's blood was brimming with blood and his muscles transformed into extremely amazing shapes. He knew that Jia Yan could not die with just one blow. Poof! Subspace breaks apart. A figure holding the light of hundreds of kilometers of formation suddenly came out to assassinate. His whole body was covered in blazing flames, and the temperature of this flame alone surprised the half-giant man. He raised his fist and collided with the attacking figure, but the flame first burned his fist completely red, and then the fist was burned into coke by the flames. Ping! The charred fist turned into fragments and was torn apart inch by inch quickly. Damn! What kind of flame is this? This half-giant man finally felt cold all over his body and suddenly wanted to retreat. But at this time, Jia Yan's body finally flew out of the subspace completely, and the crazy flames it caused were terrifyingly high temperatures that even a man could not imagine. Hoo-hoo! The shining flames made Jia Yan look like a sun, even compared to the scorching sun in the sky. Ah! The man opposite could not even stand firm, and stumbled to get away from Jia Yan, but his body was already melting rapidly under the indescribable temperature of the flames. By the time he ran to the door of the Chamber of Commerce, he had turned into a charred corpse, and the ping-pong had broken into countless pieces. So far, the third master-level master has died at the hands of Jia Yan. And the speed is extremely fast. The methods used by Jia Yan are even more diverse, each of which is short-lived, but full of lethality. Killing a master is as easy as slaughtering a dog. Ah! Jia Yan heard several voices screaming in the corner behind him. He had already distanced himself sufficiently, but the temperature on his body still caused severe injuries to several Galaxy Chamber of Commerce staff and subordinates behind him. You quickly enter the retreat room, where the defense is strongest. Yes. The group of staff members were terrified, tremblingly supporting each other and stumbling toward Jia Yan's retreat room. After Jia Yan finished doing this, when he raised his head again, there were already more than 10 eyes in front of him, looking at him. A group of masters who had reached the master level were looking at him with all kinds of eyes. Scrutiny, fear, hostility, shock, horror, and transfixion. This group of guru-level experts were already waiting nearby, but they never expected that 3 guru-level experts would die here one after another in just a short time of their support. And each of these 3 has unique fighting methods. Even if there are so many masters in the dynasty, the 3 of them still have a place. However, in such a blink of an eye, he died in the little-known Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Dear guests, do you want to come to our Chamber of Commerce to make friends, or do you also want to come and cause trouble? Jia Yan would no longer be polite, and his eyes were shining with light at this moment. The flames all over his body were still burning hot, but the temperature was much lower than when he first emerged from the subspace. In fact, Jia Yan was also frightened. Just now he was hit by the semi-giant's fist, and he immediately used his tricks and entered the subspace the moment he flew back. But he completely failed to anticipate the danger level of this complete version of space. He had guessed that the subspace in this area must be quite terrifying, so he only entered it for less than 1/10 of a second. It's just a channel for sneak attacks. But in just 1/10 of a second, he followed him into the ultra-high temperature core region of the star. In fact, the subspace here was distorted to a degree that even Jia Yan could not imagine. Not long after 0.1 seconds, 1/3 of his hundreds of kilometers of defensive formations were abruptly wiped away. 2 more times, the defensive formation he had worked so hard to build would no longer be able to support him into subspace. But this 1/10 of a second is enough. Besides, even if he doesn't have subspace means, he still has other backup methods. Did you kill these 3? An extremely old guru-level expert had his lips trembling. Not only because he was old, but also because the half-giant strongman who was killed was one of his juniors, and he was expected to succeed their clan's top master after his death. Now he died in the battle besieging Jia Yan. Obviously he had told this junior member of the clan not to be impulsive and not to be the first to rush into the battlefield, but he didn't listen and ended up being turned into coke and falling apart. Sorry, it was indeed me who did it. In fact, it doesn't count as active killing. If they didn't provoke me, they would probably still have some lives left. Arrogant. A giant crocodile with 5 or 6 heads pounced directly on Jia Yan. The matter has reached this point, no matter how strong Jia Yan is, he will never be able to negotiate peace with his mouth. Without a fight, their group of masters will not be able to get along well in the future, and public opinion will drown them out, saying that there is no one in the dynasty. As this man was dispatched, there was another strong man behind him with arms as long as noodles. He slapped Jia Yan with one hand and was 20,000 meters long. His fighting style was quite amazing. Everyone do it. Each of the 10 masters took action, while others muttered words, and a large area of virtual space filled the place. Each of these master-level masters has their own means. If Jia Yan is not strong enough, their virtualization methods alone can make Jia Yan trapped in the spaces of several masters forever, unable to get out, and trapped inside for the rest of his life. Well done. Jia Yan was not afraid. He didn't know the outcome of this battle, but he had to fight it. As the saying goes, if you hit with one punch, you won't get hit by hundreds of punches. And he has a trump card. Take your life. Those 2 palms arrived first. Before approaching Jia Yan, the palm suddenly disappeared, as if they had turned into two giant gates that covered the sky and the sun. They were millions of miles high and mighty, as if they were not going to be destroyed. Jia Yan won't stop filming until she becomes meat sauce. You don't have to take it, you can't do it. The azure color on Jia Yan's body became brighter, and in the blazing flames, his body turned into blue light, colliding with the two slaps from the left and right. He closed his palms, but there was hundreds of kilometers of defense blocking the palm, preventing him from taking the shot. Kacha-kaka-kaka. Large areas of defensive apertures were shattered. Jia Yan stabbed his foot in the palm of his hand, and the sharp front end pierced the hollowed palm, and blood suddenly gurgled out. Ah, I want you to die. Jia Yan couldn't be beaten with his palms, but his palms were already furious. He put his palms together neatly, trying to hold Jia Yan inside to death. Another figure with several heads also rushed into this huge space. The heads became as tall as the sky, and their bloody mouths opened wide, as if they were ready to bite them off bite by bite regardless of their friendly forces. I told you can't do it. Jia Yan felt vaguely passionate. This scene seemed to arouse his ferocity. It had been a long time since he had experienced a battle of this level, and there were still many strong men attacking him. His feet drew a circle along the palms of his clasped hands, but the muscles and flesh inside the palms looked real and were hundreds of thousands of kilometers thick. It was not easy for him to rush out. Sizzling. But the heat wave brought out in the subspace just now helped Jia Yan, vaporizing large pieces of muscle and blood. Jia Yan had an idea and used the tiny Tao power he had mastered to cause the fire attribute Tao absorbed by the Tao heart. The force burned the muscles in the palm of his hand all the way. Ah! The owner of the palm let out an unbearable roar of pain. Ouch! And the giant crocodile's bloody mouth also fell down. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3206. When it fell, Jia Yan felt that the palm surrounding him disappeared in an instant, and the giant palm itself was even dozens of kilometers away from him. But the crocodile's mouth that was so close to Chi replaced the palm of his hand, suddenly becoming as huge as the heaven and the earth. The upper and lower mouths were surrounded, and Jia Yan was covered in one breath and entered the attack range of the giant mouth. This mouth smells so bad. Jia Yan didn't want to get into it, so he pulled back, and a series of heart fruits automatically broke through the ground around him and flew out, blooming with terrifying energy. Boom! The power of directional blasting once again showed its power, and all the upper and lower mouths of the giant mouth were blown into pieces. Moreover, the shock wave was in a straight line and hit the crocodile body behind the huge mouth. Unfortunately, it was slightly deflected and only covered most of its head. Amidst the painful screams, this guy staggered back several steps. The remaining two heads exuded a look of horror and did not dare to come closer again. At this moment, Jia Yan had given up chasing the crocodile creature. He raised one foot, aimed at the giant palms that were about to attack again, and aimed at the right wrist to chop it off. Poof! The giant hand was severed from the wrist. No. The giant palm creature relied on its two palms to fight and survive. Seeing one of its palms cut off, it hurt and shocked, and its eyes went crazy. The other hand made a fist, and its claws suddenly grew longer, stabbing Jia Yan straight. At the same time, the other strong men who were a few steps behind were attacking like a mighty wave. They wanted to save people, but found that it was too late, and another top expert died. Frightened and angry, everyone's hearts were filled with determination. If the conflict between them and the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is not endless, then now they have to take action. Because facing such masters, they are the ones who will die if they don't go all out. Another melee expert seemed to be stepping on a phantom, and his speed suddenly increased. In the world after the phantom, he was stepping on the planet, literally chasing the stars and chasing the moon. Jia Yan's eyes were fixed. When the claws came, he was facing the attack of the 5 claws, and behind him was the attack of the Speedmaster. Ping! Jia Yan struck with 1 foot and 5 claws, and flaming sparks burst out from both sides. As for the attacks from behind, the array defenses were superimposed on one place, and were stacked for hundreds of kilometers. The attacks from behind were completely resisted by these array defenses. What a terrible defense! Seeing that Jia Yan was outnumbered and still able to handle the situation with ease, everyone worked together again. For those masters of the auxiliary system, the virtual world expanded. Even though he knew the world was fake, Jia Yan still couldn't help but enter the virtual world. In other words, the virtual world of Tao power they used is different from the powerful illusionists in the galaxy. The entire virtual world of Tao power seems real to a certain extent, but Jia Yan doesn't understand the principle anyway. So we can only dodge as much as possible. Ha 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 ha. The sky and the earth seemed to have turned into a mouth, so big that it couldn't be added. The whole world was filled with smiling faces, bursting out into joyous laughter. The sound was so touching that Jia Yan couldn't help but want to laugh out loud. But you can't laugh. This is the terrifying thing about Dao power. Unlike brainwave power, it already belongs to the rules of the world. Roll! Jia Yan roared, and the formation defense was superimposed on himself, layer upon layer, completely sealing him in a small area, and the laughter from the outside world became a little smaller. Another strong man came from behind and knocked Jia Yan out with force. Puff! After being freed from the influence of several virtual worlds, Jia Yan only felt that the battle he was surrounded by many masters was a bit unsightly. If you take it out alone, you can only survive 1 or 2 moves of your own. But if multiple people attack together, he will only get beaten. It is simply the numerical advantage that will crush him. He was a little helpless. My characteristic in the Milky Way galaxy has always been to win with less, but here, I still find myself unable to defeat 4 hands with 1 fist. But he won't admit defeat. When he raised his feet again and collided with an expert, he staggered back several steps and retreated to the edge of the yard. I am so virtuous and capable that I actually let so many masters come out together. Since you think so highly of me, I will let you see how I, the masters of the Milky Way, fight. After he finished speaking, in front of a master who was eager for quick success and wanted to get the first advantage and attack in front of him, he just crashed into the subspace. Bear. That master was the long-legged master who used chasing stars and chasing the moon. He had extremely fast reflexes with 1 foot and followed Jia Yan violently, kicking into the subspace crack. But just as he entered the moment, he exclaimed and pulled out his feet. At first glance, the toes seemed to be vaporized and disappeared in an instant. What kind of space is this? His face changed wildly, and he quickly stepped back. But the retreat hadn't started yet, and only a faint poof sound was heard from behind. Well. Turning around, I found that the strong man with long hands who had lost half of his wrist was holding his neck, his head split open, and then his head rolled to the ground. An extremely burning feeling came from his side, and before he could say anything, shocking flames fell on his head. If this master also died in this battle, Jia Yan would have killed too many of the top masters of the dynasty today. Even if he was later constrained due to exhaustion of his backup options, it would be impossible to make up for the loss of the dynasty's senior leadership's combat power. Enough. The luminous front foot that was about to kill the long-legged master seemed to be stuck in a quagmire, unable to move even an inch. The long-legged master quickly took the opportunity to escape from the attack range of the front foot. Chi. The front foot got rid of the influence of the stagnant power, and silently slashed down, cutting the earth into 2 flat and smooth halves, and extending thousands of miles away. Sizzling. The endless heat wave echoed in the courtyard. The giant mosquito no longer looked like a giant mosquito. Instead, under the cover of the defensive formation, it seemed to have expanded into a giant mosquito hundreds of kilometers in size. It was not too different from the native creatures. Look like. Very good. Jia Yan silently raised his head and looked at the visitor. The visitor slowly floated down from the sky. The appearance is that of an extremely old man, as if the oil has run out. His eyes are full of death, without any sparkle. But he is 10,000 kilometers tall, like a giant, but to be honest, the superficial characteristics of the giants are somewhat different from the giants, which is very strange. I've met the founder. Seeing this, many masters below stopped chasing Jia Yan. Founder. Founding father. Jia Yan's heart moved. Know the origin of the other party. I didn't expect that the backup man of this dynasty was actually the founding ancestor of the dynasty. Jia Yan said loudly. There was no sign of fear. Kaizu glanced at Jia Yan casually, but that was all. His eyes swept over him, as if he was familiar with it, and he didn't seem to take Jia Yan seriously at all. Because in the past tens of thousands of years, similar existences will appear every once in a while. Challenging the majesty of the dynasty, or threatening the dynasty's life and death. I don't know how many times Kaizu has repeated this. The Nyo dynasty is not as stable as Mount Tai for no reason. In fact, similar challenges are endless and never stop. Some of them were solved by the dynasty themselves. However, there are some things that even the entire dynasty or the royal family cannot solve, and only he can take action. He has used similar methods countless times and fought against strong men countless times. So get used to it. The old man's dying breath covered his whole body, and he landed lightly on the ground. His body trembled, as if he was about to be buried. Tisk, tisk, it's really amazing. By locking your aura like this, there is almost no waste of energy. Jia Yan saw it and almost clapped his hands in amazement. Then the other party glanced at him unhurriedly, his eyes completely unfocused. Junior, you are quite young. The breath of life can be smelled by an old man from a long distance away. Thank you, Jia Yan nodded. The opponent did not directly fight Jia Yan, but wandered to the bodies of several dead guru-level masters. Two of them are not quite dead yet. But the old man didn't care about it at all and said without emotion, since several of you are going to die, it's better to become an old man. After saying this, without waiting for the replies from these experts or others, he grabbed one of the corpses and saw a large amount of Taoist energy pouring out from the corpse. Along with it, there is also the strange energy that these strong men had during their lifetime, like vitality. All the energy flowed into the old man's body, making his cloudy eyes regain some clarity, but that was all. Jia Yan did not interrupt. The remaining masters all frowned, but no one said anything. Probably they already knew this was the case. Jia Yan walked to the side without any scruples and silently picked up several otherworldly medicines from the warehouse, which have extremely strong effects on the creatures in the galaxy. He penetrated them with his mouthparts as if no one was watching, and slowly restored his energy. Several experts had sharp eyes. When they noticed this scene, their faces turned dark and they wanted to take action. But when others secretly said something with their power, they sneered and stopped making any move. Since the founder is here in person, no matter what Jia Yan's methods are and what reinforcements he has, it is impossible to get over it. Small book booth. They don't need to take action, just leave it to Kaizu. Otherwise, if they are killed by Jia Yan again using his unique space skills, they will be devoured by Kaizu for no reason. The old man absorbed it very quickly, and even the thousands of kilometers tall giants that turned into crystal carbon quickly turned into mist under his absorption. Jia Yan also happened to finish sucking the last treasure fruit that replenished physical energy, threw it aside, and burped. The old man let out a deep breath. The smell was so stinky that it seemed to be the corpse breath exhaled by a corpse. But by the end of this breath, it felt a lot fresher. It should be that he recovered his body after absorbing the breath and vitality of so many powerful people. Jia Yan doesn't know the specific situation, so let's just leave it at that. When the refreshed old man looked back, he became a little more energetic. Junior, why don't you run away? Why should I run away? Jia Yan laughed dumbly. The old man looked at him strangely, and even the strong men around him who had seen Jia Yan's strength couldn't help but look askance. They know Jia Yan's strength. In other words, it is what I think I understand. Although Jia Yan was strong just now, under their joint attack, he was not uninjured and even faltered. They firmly believed that if they fought for a while longer, they would definitely be able to take down Jia Yan. Even if it costs a few more casualties, it may be a tragic victory, and only 2 or 3 people will survive in the end. But this kind of strength is far behind compared to Kaizu. They had calculated that if they wanted to fight the founding ancestor, they would still be far from successful if all of them joined forces. The most terrifying thing is the founder's talent for Taoism. And this power talent is also the reason why the founder can live for tens of thousands of years. His innate power is a vitality that can swallow up all powerful energy. Transform it into your own power, or simply transform it into your own life force. However, it is difficult and complicated to transform life force. Even if Kaizu had such an ability, it only allowed him to survive. As a result, it has been difficult for him to move for tens of thousands of years. He has been hiding deep in the palace, sealing himself as if he was half dead. Just waiting for the dynasty to take action when there is a serious enemy. Over the past tens of thousands of years, he has helped the dynasty survive countless crises and fought against countless powerful men. Even the strength has improved a lot. Therefore, the experts present did not believe that Jia Yan could still resist this person. You are a very confident young man. I have heard about you. Are you from outside the world? Yes. Senior, have you ever seen visitors from outer space? The old man smiled and said, I have seen them before. Not only have I seen them, but several of my friends and several enemies are all visitors from outside the universe. I am also very curious about your universe. Unfortunately, I have never had the opportunity to see them. Jia Yan understood immediately. This old guy has lived for too long. The issue of visitors from outside the world has probably always existed in this dynasty, so it is not surprising that he has seen visitors from outside the world. Moreover, the strong people who can enter the inner world are generally either extremely weak or extremely strong. A small number of masters at the lower level of Domain Lord are so strong that even the current Jia Yan may be evenly matched. He also believed that this old man was stronger than his current appearance. The prediction of the number of steps on the road is impossible to count. If he could easily predict the opponent's strength every time, wouldn't he be able to avoid many life and death battles? For example, in this calculation, Jia Yan thought that he might have made a mistake. Senior, have you ever met the senior of the immortal sect? How do you compare with him? Jia Yan saw that the old man's aura was gradually condensing and rising, so he asked Chiyuan before the fight started, and he intervened to ask questions. That junior? He's very strong. Maybe the old man won't be able to do anything to him without using certain methods, but he is still a little younger. Jia Yan was in awe. In this way, he knew that the founder of the dynasty had earth-shattering strength and was probably the most powerful existence besides the supreme being he had ever seen. But Jia Yan didn't show any fear. It's rare to meet such a powerful senior, so please don't disappoint me, please. Jia Yan threw away the fruit shell that had absorbed all the essence and stood up. Do you really want to fight Kaizu? The onlookers were a little surprised. Then he smiled sarcastically. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3207. They realized that this Jia Yan was an existence from outside the world. Although he seemed to be integrated into the dynasty, he must still have too little understanding of the dynasty and did not know the greatness and terror of the founder. This is by no means a peerless master that ordinary strong men can imagine. He is the only one who stands proudly at the top of the dynasty. Jia Yan. The strong will return to the strong, but at least they dare to raise the spirit of confrontation. Even if he had the ability to enter a space and suddenly burst out, they could see clearly that Jia Yan seemed to have suffered huge losses after entering. They didn't know that Jia Yan's ability to enter subspace in this area was already an extremely earth-shattering thing. If he went to the Xiancheng area, his combat effectiveness would have increased several times. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. Moreover, this is what Jia Yan himself actively pursues. Arrive at the imperial capital. The main purpose is to intimidate. The second purpose is. It was also a battle with the Kaizu. Very good, very energetic, full of energy. I haven't seen such a little guy in a long time. Kaizu regained his energy and smiled. Over the years, the beings he had fought against, even if they were all juniors, none of them who dared to fight against him were older than a few thousand years old. For nearly 10,000 years, those who dared to fight against him had made the entire dynasty restless. They are all somewhat confident in dealing with Kaizu, and they are all cunning, and they look like they are the same age as him. A little guy finally appeared with so much vitality that it was almost overflowing. Kaizu felt a sense of exception to take a second look at him. That's all. Catcha. Just when Jia Yan was about to say something, Kaizu stretched out his palm, but no movement was seen at all. The whole world, air, and even time were vaguely frozen. Jia Yan and others were trapped in a quagmire. It was very similar to the feeling just now, but it was enhanced several times, making Jia Yan unable to move. The founder is mighty. Is this solved? Incredibly strong, this is the strength of those who sit in the imperial dynasty. Among the masters who were watching, some were trembling with admiration, some were frightened and confused, and some simply had sinister expressions on their faces, because they also coveted the dynasty. This person is so powerful that he can no longer make calculations. Kaka. But when the brilliance in the palm of the founder's hand was dazzling and the light was about to bloom at its most powerful, something happened to Jia Yan wrapped in the light. His array armor, covered in flames, erupted into a more brilliant color. Fierce golden light covered the earth, and the formations melted like spring breeze and rain, one by one, colliding with the power of the founder. Forcibly destroy all the control power of Kaizu. As expected, he is worthy of being at the imperial level. He is amazing, really amazing. Jia Yan's voice came from it. A mosquito with complex colors all over its body walked out with graceful steps. His expression was very peaceful, with an indescribable look of contentment. Moody, it was like everything he was experiencing now was under his control. Even the bloody battle not long ago was just an appetizer. In fact, this is also true. 10 years of accumulation. Another tenth of the entire life. With Jia Yan's strength and Jia Yan's growth rate, is it possible that he will not grow when he comes to this inner world known as the key treasure land for late-level breakthroughs? Good. When he came to the capital, he made a self-assessment of himself. His apparent strength was about 20 steps. Weaker than the old man from the immortal sect. Even weaker than the founder of the dynasty. But Jia Yan never said that his backhand only had this strength. He has never admitted to anyone that his backhand is still the same as it was more than 10 years ago. These 10 years. Jia Yan's main direction of growth is to have more means. In addition to subspace and the accumulation of explosives, there is another method, which may be his real strongest backup right now. This is it. It combines yin-yang dao and tao li, a unique cultivation technique of dual cultivation paths. Don't forget, Jia Yan's yin and yang dao is the culmination of the power of positive and negative forces. And in terms of his power attribute, he is water and fire. Fire and water are incompatible, one is positive and the other is negative. Superimposed on the positive and negative power of yin and yang dao, who can predict how terrible the sparks between the two systems will be? Jia Yan had never expected such a change before. But he has personally witnessed it over the past 10 years. So he became bolder. In this form, the consumption is quite high. He paces. The body is azure after the yin and yang dao superimposed, and there is the fire of space caused by the subspace, and then there are large tracts of thin ice and snow covering the body surface. Not only does the mosquito body not become mottled, but it has a unique sense of beauty. It is as beautiful as a delicate mosquito decoration. Who are you? Kaizu clearly felt the terrifying strength of Jia Yan's form, frowned slightly, and asked. Didn't the founder know this earlier? I am from the Milky Way. My name is Jia Yan. I heard that our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was in trouble, so I came here to break into the capital of your dynasty to see if it is a dragon's pond or a tiger's den. Jia Yan's face was expressionless. Kaizu's fingers pinched together again, and an overwhelming power surged over Jia Yan. He asked calmly, do you think so? It's interesting, but... Jia Yan said lightly, and large areas of formation power suddenly flashed on the surface of his body. Moreover, this formation power was no longer blue, but with flames and ice and snow. Boom boom boom. There was something vaguely cracked in the air, and one of Kaizu's nails snapped off. He looked at his fingertips and became gloomy again, his eyes locked on Jia Yan. You see, it's just a bit interesting. The actual situation is that this junior is a little uninterested. Seeing is worse than hearing 100 times, and seeing is worse than not seeing. Alas. Kaizu's expression became even more dangerous. Junior, are you irritating me? Kaizu's strength must be more than that. The fight between the two sides until now has been nothing more than a trial. Although Jia Yan's abilities have changed a lot, they have only just caught the attention of the founder. A strong man who has been in charge of a country for tens of thousands of years is definitely not that simple. Jia Yan shook his head and said, no, it's just senior. As you can see, I don't want to be an enemy of the dynasty. What I do is just to protect myself. To be fair, I am just an honest businessman. If you fight with me to the death, and both sides suffer, wouldn't it be very likely that those villains in the dark will benefit from it? You understand what I mean? Junior, are you threatening me? Of course I don't dare. Whether to expand the war or not depends entirely on the senior's own judgment. Jia Yan looked at Kaizu and clenched his hands again. A force far more powerful than before suddenly came upon him. His heart skipped a beat, but his expression was clear. Between the two formations, the power emitted the color of fire and ice, and the moment they merged together, the whole thing exploded. This may be the most brutal move among Jia Yan's ordinary methods nowadays. It does not rely on any external objects or any positive and negative explosives, but its power is comparable to positive and negative explosives. Boom, it was as if someone had set off an extra large firework in the yard, and the fireworks were also controlled extremely delicately, annihilating the gripping force just right without expanding. Kaizu's expression became silent, as if he was thinking. Jia Yan did not take the initiative to attack, and continued his calm expression. The other masters were all in disbelief. They believed that Kaizu's strength was destined to crush Jia Yan, but the reality did not seem to be the case. Changxiang Chinese website. Has the founder become weaker, or has Jia Yan concealed too much strength? Both are possible, but only one thing is certain. Kaizu couldn't simply capture Jia Yan. They don't know what will happen next. They have confidence in joining forces with Kaizu to capture Jia Yan, but their confidence is getting smaller and smaller. Just being powerful doesn't matter. Just now Jia Yan also showed his subdimensional ability that only belongs to him. If that ability is displayed again, who in the room can resist it except Kaizu? No one expected that the result of Kaizu's personal action would be a bit embarrassing. Are you, a visitor from the Milky Way? Kaizu suddenly asked again without any clue. Yes, Milky Way. Jia Yan paused and replied without knowing why. The founder chewed on this term and had mixed emotions. So that's it, the Milky Way. Back then my friend, Ming Tai, was this person still there? Jia Yan was shocked. He looked at Kaizu with a strange expression, and the other party clearly sensed Jia Yan's mentality and asked, "It seems that I know this name, but do you know Tai's Hang?" "No, I and Tai's Hang knew each other at the beginning. It was already tens of thousands of years ago, and the Supreme Being claimed that there is an upper limit on life in his hometown. Unless he breaks through to a stronger upper limit, it will be difficult to live beyond 20,000 years, could it be?" Jia Yan's mood was ups and downs for a while. Unexpectedly, I bumped into the former friend of the Supreme Senior in the other world. It took him a moment to regain his consciousness, and he nodded without knowing what to think. Yes, the Supreme Senior is no longer among our ranks of strength. Kaizu felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He stood there for a long time without saying anything. Immediately, he seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time. He laughed and said, "Really? The Supreme Master has made a breakthrough. He has made a breakthrough, he has realized his great ambitions back then, and my ancestor, has become a frog in the well, and he has become a frog in the well. It was the same back then, that's all, just wait for the fight, just wait for the fight." Kaizu reluctantly let go of his hold on Jia Yan, and the deathly aura all over his body became even darker. It seemed that the news about the Tai Shang had an extremely strong psychological impact on him. He took off unsteadily, rising and falling, and flew towards the depths of the palace. "Senior Kaizu! Ancestor, what are you doing?" Several masters and masters couldn't help but fly up high, looking at the back of the founder and asking loudly. Kaizu paused and replied with a melodious voice, "This little friend is a junior of my ancestor's old friend. For this incident, let's put an end to the war for the time being. If there is another time, I will kill them without mercy. You can also let them go bar." Well. This group of experts looked at each other. Jia Yan, who was in the center of the courtyard, calmly calmed down the two cultivation moods that shrouded his body. He doesn't care. It's okay if Kaizu wants to fight. Just as Jia Yan was sure from the beginning, even if the fight started, he would be unable to defeat the four hands with two fists, and the most he could do was grab a few of his most promising subordinates and escape into the subspace. On Suankan's side, he has already asked two lower-level partners of the Territory Lord to take charge, and after getting a reply on whether his side is a war or a peace, he will act according to the situation. If a war breaks out, the two of them will take action to bring Xiancheng to Xiancheng. The entire city was occupied. That area was an area where Jia Yan could freely use the subspace, and it was also the territory where the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce had been doing business for a long time. After the war started, regardless of whether there was any friendship, he directly ruled it, locked down the surrounding area, and continued to do business. The Apprentices' Rebellion has been advancing for more than 10 years. Now a group of people have gathered together to fight the autumn wind in the territory around Xiancheng. Once things change, he will also settle in Xiancheng. He may not be able to rule the surrounding big cities. But the isolated city of Xiancheng can definitely be captured by the two strong men of the late rank of the Galaxy Territory Lords, plus the good troops of the disciples. And when Jia Yan breaks through and goes back, even if there are Imperial troops in that area to quell the rebellion, Jia Yan doesn't believe that they can make waves. What's more, he can secretly contact the underground clan to send troops, and also arranges for several major rebel forces to put pressure together. Whether the Imperial army can safely reach Xiancheng is really uncertain. but these backup moves can now be put on hold. Because the strongest man in the dynasty, Kaizu, chose to retreat after a few simple duels with Jia Yan and after hearing the news from the Supreme Senior. No one knows whether he retreated because of Jia Yan's strength or simply because his heart was shaken by the Supreme Intelligence. Maybe a bit of both? Friends of the dynasty, I promise that after this incident, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will continue to fulfill its duties and be our merchants instead of causing more friction with the dynasty. Please also consider the face of our ancestors and do not have any further contact with this Chamber of Commerce. Discords continue to arise, thank you very much. On behalf of my subordinates here in the capital, I apologize to you for what happened earlier. Jia Yan didn't wait for the group of dynasty masters to react further, but he took the lead and made a polite apology. Jia Yan's move caught the opponent off guard. So tough before. I had a game with Kaizu and went to Shiyuan. No one could tell the outcome, so Jia Yan took the initiative to retreat. Maybe it's because Kaizu is stronger than Jia Yan? But even if he is strong, he is definitely not strong enough to easily suppress Jia Yan. Jia Yan's apology also showed that he was willing to give both parties a step forward. If they continue to be ignorant, they will have no choice but to continue the war, and the ensuing war is destined to be an endless war. And if a war breaks out, the corpses on the ground that are devoured by the ancestors will most likely be their fate. Snort. The strong man who lost one of his palms and seemed to be about to fight Jia Yan in a life and death duel, snorted coldly with an extremely ugly face, but instead of exploding, he chose to walk away and picked up his one arm along the way. Maybe he would still have it when he turned around. Way to reattach the arm. Another half-giant, who was probably related to the charred half-giant, took a deep look at Jia Yan, waved his hand, gathered the charcoal on the ground in front of him, sighed silently, and left the door. And go. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3208. The remaining masters stood awkwardly in place, unable to leave, let alone start a fight with Jia Yan again. President Jia Yan, if you return to Xiancheng, can you possibly guarantee that you will not have any involvement with the rebels or the dynasty's hostile racial forces? Of course I can guarantee that I didn't know about this. Besides, they are also victims. Who knew that the buyer would be an opponent of the dynasty when the things were sold? Jia Yan insisted that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was also a victim. Anyway, they are outsiders, and they cannot have perfect information about the intricate network of relationships within the dynasty. Even if they have been here for 10 years, compared to the vast territory of the dynasty, what do they count? After receiving Jia Yan's words, several experts, whether they believed it or not, their faces became much better. Then let's get to know each other without a fight, President Jia Yan. Now, in the name of the Prime Minister of the Ministry of War, I order you to wait for the Chamber of Commerce to leave the imperial capital as soon as possible. There will be no branch of your Chamber of Commerce in the capital for 100 years. This is a punishment. What do you think of it as the final solution to quell the war? A monkey-like creature walked out and said calmly. Okay, Jia Yan nodded tepidly. The two sides deliberately did not talk about the top masters who died, which was to avoid the important and ignore the important. Several master-level masters were killed in the battle, and the shock was definitely not just a little bit. Maybe there will be a storm within the dynasty in the future, because each of them is a high-level person among the high-level people, and some are even among the big forces. Lord, he is now sacrificed in the hands of Jia Yan, and his death is still unclear. The murderer Jia Yan is at large. I am afraid that there will be more involvement and stories to unfold. But both sides deliberately did not talk about the dead people. At least the matter was revealed on the spot. This Chamber of Commerce will leave on its own in 2 days. Everyone, see you again if we have the chance. Goodbye. I am afraid that the group of masters who were parting were thinking in their hearts, I will see you again. Not long after that, Jia Yan opened the door to the secret room. Ah! Lord Jia Yan? They are gone. We won. The subordinates filed out of the room, but when they saw a pool of corpse fragments belonging to Jian's corpse on the ground, they felt a little sad. The Milky Way is no longer safe, and it is difficult to easily affect the Galaxy Masters. But today, Jianshu was like a clown, dying without any room for struggle. Afterwards, no one except them old subordinates cared about it at all. This money rat is responsible for his own fault. After you pack up his body, we will be responsible for taking him back if you want to see his body alive or dead. As commanded. All the subordinates said in unison. Jianshu's death makes people feel uncomfortable, but no one really sympathizes with him. Traitors in the galaxy are punished severely. Jia Yan asked them to prepare to move and leave, then turned around and entered the retreat room. After closing the door, I saw Jia Yan's blue body covered with defenses, and cracks began to appear. The noise lasted for more than 10 minutes. The masters of the dynasty are indeed worthy of their reputation. Jia Yan was far from being cornered. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have to pay the price. Entering and exiting the subspace twice, the twisting power of the subspace itself was resisted by layers of formations, but could not essentially hurt him. However, the shocking friction and distortion of more than 20 levels of space caused a severe energy consumption in the formation defense, resulting in energy consumption, indicating that there is a physical phenomenon occurring between the two, and this physical phenomenon is ultra-high temperature heat. The roasted Jia Yan thought he was going to turn into a roasted giant mosquito. After entering it twice, he was physically and mentally exhausted from the high temperature. Moreover, he also had head-to-head confrontations with several great masters, both physically and spiritually. Don't look at the few who fought with him head-on just now, there were also a lot of people behind who used virtual power to fight Jia Yan. The number of people who trapped him to death has always been more than 5. In other words, while Jia Yan was fighting Master Changzi Changshao, he was also fighting with several others who were in the realm of virtual power. This is no longer a level of fighting that the strong men of the galaxy can understand. Not to mention the simple duels with the Kizu in the end. He showed no mercy, or in other words, except for the final strength, I am afraid he has gone all out. And he also felt that I still had means, so he chose to retreat. Jia Yan sighed. If he hadn't made a dangerous move, it would have been very difficult to pass this level. In the end, at most, the last trace of subspace energy is left to escape. Yet the risk is worth it. Hit with one punch to avoid hundreds of punches coming. He generally won the matter openly. But, the founder's heritage is still strong. Secondly, is the Tai Shang he mentioned really the Tai Shang senior I know? Thinking of this, Jia Yan couldn't help but look solemn. Too great. That is one of the few late-level galactic powers in the entire galaxy. They can be positioned as the peak of the galaxy, or they can be positioned as mighty. At least in Jia Yan's current understanding, this group of powerful people in the Tai's Hang are the final results of the cultivation path in the galaxy that he knows, and they are existences that have reached the limit. And too high. He actually has a close relationship with the strongest dynasty in this world. This was beyond Jia Yan's expectation, but after thinking about it carefully, he suddenly realized it. There have been rumors in the Milky Way that this world is a treasured place for promotion to the great power. It is impossible to let it go, so there will always be one or a few people who have succeeded in promotion here. Then it makes sense that the Supreme Being has visited the other world. The place where he came is the dynasty closest to the Milky Way, which is a 9/10 conclusion. Tens of thousands of years ago, if the Supreme Senior had contact with this founder, and from what the founder said, the original Supreme Senior was even close to him in strength. Jia Yan's thoughts were racing for a while. The Supreme Mighty One may have really found an opportunity for promotion in the other world. But maybe he was not promoted in the other world, or he left immediately after being promoted, or maybe he hid his strength so that Kaizu didn't know his specific strength. It's really heartbreaking. Thinking that he was stepping on the land where the late-level powers of the galaxy were truly cultivated, Jia Yan felt excited for a moment. Although he has been looking for a way to be promoted, no matter how much strength he has improved now, he still feels that the gap between him and the true power is as big as heaven and earth. Now that I know that I have walked the path that I once walked, my sense of peace of mind has improved a lot. By the way, maybe the low-level domain master who broke into the other world incognitoli also sneaked in here quietly after learning the specific information. And he has disappeared for more than 10 years. Could it be that he has a purpose? Sex. Jia Yan suddenly thought of something. Jia Yan has not completely forgotten about the late-level leader of the territory lord who has disappeared so many times. He has sent out manpower or asked the local aborigines to inquire about it several times. But apart from knowing that he had massacred a family city camp, there was no other news. Jia Yan was even more suspicious at this time. The mysterious master had already obtained certain historical data from the galaxy, and was looking for clues about the strong men who had been promoted in the other world to find some stronger treasures. In this case, this person's whereabouts become quite important. Jia Yan would not miss such an important possibility. Investigation into this person's whereabouts became urgent. From Jia Yan's perspective, the other party's escape route was probably heading towards the overseas mainland. Because such a strong person wants to investigate something, and he will make some noise, and then the galaxy merchant in charge of Jia Yan will get clues. After all, the old domain lord once slaughtered the family forces, it is not like he can people who sit firmly on Diaotai. Moreover, he is probably thousands or even 10,000 years old. The end is very near, and if he wants to break through, he cannot be delayed slowly. The lifespan of the strong in the galaxy is not fixed. It mainly depends on their strength, race, injury status, and the direction of cultivation, etc. It has a huge impact. For example, the perfect gene race concocted by Satsuma Temple actually has, on the contrary, the lifespan is far worse than the normal natural life. However, I am not a modulated evolved beast individual. Although I am not a modulated gene, I am not inferior to the scientifically modulated body in terms of perfection, and even have a deeper foundation. It far exceeds the scientific modulation body, so my lifespan is enough to reach 1 to twice that of ordinary people of the same level without being harmed by dark damage. Of course, it cannot be compared with the turtle race creature like the previous formation master whose racial talent is in lifespan. And lifespan, at least as far as the creatures in the galaxy are concerned, still has a lot of room for manual manipulation. For example, I can use the array gene conversion to give Satsuma-chan a lifespan of thousands of years again. Maybe there will be more by then. Other solutions extend life. As for the other world, it's even more different. The lives here have their own reproduction system. The cultivation of Tao power by strong people can also have many benefits in extending lifespan or improving genetic integrity. The lifespan is even longer than that of masters in the Milky Way. Much longer. For some galaxy-level races and immortal races, the lifespan can reach tens of thousands or even tens of thousands of years. The monastic system is very different from the system of the strong men in the universe. After Jia Yan practiced both of them, he vaguely found similarities between the two. It's no wonder that the outside world spreads that there is a way to advance to power in the other world. Just practicing in the monastic environment of the other world can greatly improve your strength out of thin air. The old territory lord whose lifespan is coming to an end, more than 10 years have passed, and he may have found what he wanted, or maybe he has an idea. Jia Yan was so angry that he couldn't find anyone, but he had nothing to do. So. Several days passed. Jia Yan led many subordinates of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to the city gate. Today, the city gate was cleared of roads, and the bustling merchant fleets and people were driven by the government to watch in the distance from the city gate. By squeezing out everyone from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, the dynasty was waging such a huge battle, which also showed their fear of Jia Yan. Farewell. There is a slight misunderstanding. It cannot hurt our fundamental feelings. Our Chamber of Commerce still welcomes all friends to visit us. Thank you very much, President Xia. A total of 7 guru-level experts, including a few strangers, all clasped their fists in a friendly manner towards Jia Yan and others. Looking extremely funny, Jia Yan's side is full of small creatures that are so small that ordinary people lower their heads to find them, that are difficult to see with the naked eye, while the other side is a top expert who is often tens of thousands of meters high. It is precisely this that makes people more interested in the legend of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Many folk rumors have circulated that Jia Yan and the ancestors of the royal family were fighting until the sky was dark, the sand was flying, and the rocks were flying. Although no one actually saw it, and no one saw the sky falling, madness had already spread in the capital. The imperial court, rather unusually, did not stop the rumors from spreading. Jia Yan led a few subordinates of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and flew towards the sky. In fact, in addition to Qian Shu, the traitor who was seeking his own death, there were 3 or 4 staff members from the Milky Way who disappeared. Jia Yan also submitted a request and asked the dynasty to conduct a search, but to no avail. Maybe he died, maybe he was captured and secretly held somewhere. Their disappearance could not make Jia Yan angry with the dynasty again. Except for other colleagues who dared to be angry and dare not speak out, even Jia Yan seemed to have forgotten and no longer mentioned them. It was quite lucky that these few people were the only losses caused by the confrontation between the two sides. The dynasty has lost several masters and masters. Even if they are exchanged for one, those who are missing will not lose. Jia Yan flashed, wrapped up his subordinates with his spiritual power, and flew away. And not long after Jia Yan left, Yi's decree suddenly spread within the dynasty. The Queen Mother, who was temporarily regent, announced the establishment of a new young emperor, changed the country's title, and granted amnesty to the world. And her reason is very simple, that is, the rebels are raging, and unknown alien forces are reaching out to the dynasty. What they want now is not a powerful emperor, but someone who is not as strong-blooded as the previous emperor. A leader who frequently goes to the front lines, but wants a true emperor who can sit in the court, slowly learn the art of governing the country, and be the king of peace in the future. The new emperor came to power, and everything was in ruins. The entire dynasty seemed to be directly shocked by this news. The previous Galaxy Chamber of Commerce running rampant in the capital turned into urban rumors and was directly forgotten. It was against this background that Jia Yan and his party took their time, admiring the scenery along the way while slowly rushing towards Xiancheng. Jia Yan occasionally used the power transfer technique to lead everyone into the illusionary space, and transferred millions or tens of millions of kilometers out of thin air, and then traveled a while, and then teleported tens of millions of kilometers further. After repeating this process, we finally arrived at a relatively stable place in the subspace. Stand still, I will take you back directly. Yes. The working people quickly took orders. Jia Yan tore apart the subspace and drilled into it. Is this the so-called space technique? Is there any profound meaning for this kid to not use this technique until here? Or is he really just traveling around? A figure who was good at hiding his figure walked out of the mountain forest and came to the ground where Jia Yan was standing. He remained silent for a long time. Jia Yan never thought of hiding his figure. Whether or not there was a way for him to escape the Hidden One, he never thought of such a thing. After all, he did not lead the people to fly back directly from the subspace. This move will definitely attract the attention and association of the imperial court. On other people's territory, you can't cover it up if you want to deceive others, unless Jia Yan really wants to show off his face again and massacre all the pursuers of the dynasty. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3209. He couldn't for the time being, so he let the prying eyes go. Xiancheng. Today's Xiancheng has a solidified atmosphere that is slowly fermenting. News from the imperial capital has also reached Xiancheng. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is causing chaos in the imperial capital. This piece of information was like hot water boiling, igniting public opinion throughout Xiancheng. Compared to the imperial capital, Xiancheng is just a small town, and regardless of its military or political status, it is as small as an ant. And the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which came from Xiancheng, actually caused a huge repercussions in the imperial capital. The word went crazy in the market. However, merchants, citizens, and dignitaries who had a good relationship with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce did not dare to speak out, for fear that they would get into trouble when the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was liquidated by the royal family. The government, which had deliberately kept a distance from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce before, has now adopted a hostile attitude. In addition to not daring to blatantly arrest him, there are officials patrolling back and forth outside the gate of the Chamber of Commerce all day long. Those city guards are all around the Chamber of Commerce every few days, as if they are guarding to prevent the people inside from escaping. But Xiancheng really dares to take action? I really don't dare. The Lord of Xiancheng even felt that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce should not attack him. The little power Xiancheng had on the surface was nothing compared to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which was able to make big news in the imperial capital. If he were not casually pinched to death, he would have burned incense and worshipped Buddha. City Lord. City Lord. It's not good. On this day, some staff rushed into the City Lord's mansion. The City Lord, who had a furoshiki under his head and was ready to escape at any time, jumped up, threw the furoshiki on his back and shouted, "Is the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce rebelling? Let's leave quickly. The ship has been arranged, we can take it. The boat goes directly to the depths of the mountains and forests." No, City Lord, it's Jia Yan who's back." The City Lord's eyes hardened. "Come back. It's true, he really killed him back from the capital. What is this guy's attitude? Wasn't the teacher still there a few days ago? Quickly, inform the teacher and let him come to discuss things. With the teachings here, safety will be guaranteed." Well, it seems that the teacher learned the news a few days ago and has already left. Taking a breath of cold air, the City Lord knew that the implication was that Jiao 11 had also escaped. In Xiaoxian City, the City Lord could only find the strongest instructor who had recently come to take charge, but these strongest masters had all escaped. One can imagine the tremendous pressure Jia Yan put on the dynasty masters. Originally, the City Lord had decided to stay in Xiancheng for a while to see how the situation had changed. Now that he knew that Jiao 11 had also escaped, he thought about it and thought, well, he has already packed it up, so we can just escape. The previous guarding of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and various signs were all done by the City Lord. When Jia Yan returns, God knows whether he will kill his old friend. He is nothing special and is not too friendly to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. He will kill the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and ask the dynasty to find a new City Lord, or the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce secretly occupies Xiancheng themselves, which are all methods that can be tried. Walk. The City Lord's family members were extremely mobile. In 15 minutes, they gathered at the back door of the City Lord's mansion. The family quietly shouted in front of them, put on ordinary citizen clothes, and fled out of the city. But when they reached the entrance of the alley and were about to enter the main road, two tiny figures stood in front of the City Lord's clan. Who? The private soldiers loyal to the City Lord's family stepped forward and drew their standard swords and weapons. "Lord City Lord, there is no need to leave in such a panic. Leaving without saying goodbye is not the behavior of a person with good moral character. The one with the most wrinkled skin among the two figures said calmly. The seemingly small body has an unfathomable aura emanating from it. This is some kind of warning. Are you two, family members of officials, or masters of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? The city lord calmed down and stepped forward with respect and asked. He couldn't see clearly the strength of these two people, but judging from their appearance, he could roughly tell that the other party was from the Milky Way. He lamented in his heart, but he was as calm as possible. The city lord is smart and smart. He should have made some guesses when he saw our appearance. Alas! The city lord sighed again. He no longer talked about him, and did not even communicate too much with the two masters. He turned back and looked deeply at the clansmen, especially the two young children. He hesitated to speak. Finally, the words came to his lips, and then swallowed it back. Let's go back home, we're not leaving, he said. A group of people in the city lord's mansion, all with pale faces, returned to the city lord's mansion obediently. Except for the young children who were not yet sensible, everyone else was heartbroken and thought that a great tragedy would definitely happen in the future. The two tiny figures looked at the other side of the alley, snorted coldly, and then disappeared. And where they were looking, there was a master from the government with a complex expression. He shook his head and sighed, and said to the two subordinates behind him, "Let's go. Jia Yan is back. In this Xiancheng, the dynasty can no longer be the master." They left quickly. And bring out the information that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has other masters besides Jia Yan. As a result, more people are wary of Galaxy Shang, an emerging force. A master alone cannot support a large force, but if there are two masters of the same level, or slightly weaker than a certain level, the situation will be different. The skeleton of the upper level strength has been successfully built, not to mention that the dynasty is already crumbling. Just mention the three top masters who are under their control. Even in the strongest period of the dynasty, these forces cannot be ignored. Besides, the current dynasty can no longer care about the gains and losses of this trading town. The northern land's prestige had already risen due to the main force of the rebels killing the former emperor, and the vast land was under attack. Although the underground clan did not invade the land again, this time they no longer retreated into the underground due to unfavorable confrontations. They chose to occupy an area of a city and began to mobilize their troops. The barbarian tribes in the far west frequently sent envoys. They seemed to be quite peaceful, but in fact they were constantly flexing their swords with the dynasty in terms of economy, trade, and diplomacy, and the relationship was also somewhat tense. All of these are more important than the matters in Xiancheng. Because no matter what, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has not announced that it will occupy Xiancheng. Although it may control all aspects of Xiancheng privately, it still submits to the dynasty on the surface. The dynasty, which had lost several great masters, focused more on dealing with other aspects, rather than the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which should not increase pressure for the time being. Visitors from different worlds make the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce incompatible with the dynasty as a whole. Even if the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce wants to usurp more of the dynasty's interests, it will be difficult to do so. After all, people are naturally more wary of them. Click. A teacup is placed gently on the table. The city lord was holding his own cup. The aroma of the tea in the cup was refreshing, but he couldn't taste it. Tea worth thousands of gold is like chewing wax. Lord City Lord, can I say that I am also innocent when the situation has reached this point? Jia Yan elegantly picked up a paper towel with his front feet and wiped his mouth stained with tea. I believe. The city lord said tiredly. He just didn't believe Jia Yan in person, what else could he say? This person's power made the city lord of Xiancheng feel on pins and needles even before he left for the capital. However, after returning from the capital, the city lord discovered that his judgment on Jia Yan was still wrong. Jia Yan is more than just a guru. It is an existence that can stir up trouble and reign in the core area of the entire dynasty, as if causing havoc in heaven, and still come back safe and sound. It is said that even the founder of the dynasty took action. Every time Kaizu made a move, he would shake the world and kill all the enemies. However, this time, Kaizu also failed. Not only did he fail to kill Jia Yan, he also seemed to have signed some unequal treaties. In short, facing Jia Yan again, the pressure on the city lord doubled out of thin air. Actually, I also know that the lord of the city doesn't believe it. After all, we are visitors from outside the world. We are outsiders, and we are even less familiar than the overseas guests. No way, this is absolutely impossible. Xiancheng, are extremely close to everyone in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and treat them like one of our own family members. Bang! Jia Yan suddenly slammed the table. The 2,000 kilometers long tabletop jumped hard, and the city lord turned pale in fright. My family? Can you please explain to me, the city lord, why you have to send troops to guard your family all day long as if you are facing a formidable enemy, and why you do not allow me, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, to operate normally? Well, it's not that there have been a lot of rumors recently. This city lord is worried that unknown people will attack your Chamber of Commerce. Secondly, my city lord did not ask your Chamber of Commerce to close down. It was because the guests of your Chamber of Commerce did not dare to come again, not because I ordered them. Yes. The city lord is also a guy with a lotus tongue. Every time he opens and closes his mouth, it is a legitimate reason that seems to be quite reasonable. Without such eloquence, one cannot become a city lord. That's all. The city lord's clever words and expressions are indeed extraordinary, Jia Yan said with waning interest. He said, now that the matter has come to this, I just want to ask the lord of the city to issue a few orders. First, to explain to the citizens that our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has been investigated and proved to be a good organization that abides by laws and regulations. Second, the lord of the city, Your Excellency, personally presented an official document from the government, announcing that our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is allowed to expand trade routes and have escorts belonging to the Chamber of Commerce. After all, more and more anti-thief armies have sprung up recently, and merchants of the Chamber of Commerce always need a certain amount of their own strength. In addition, there are, as for a few less important details, I will let my staff continue to discuss them with you. Can you agree to these requests? Promise. Of course I agree, haha. The city lord wants to cry but has no tears left. How dare he refuse to agree? If he agrees, he is destined to be secretly called a traitor by everyone in the dynasty. But if I don't agree, my whole family may die inexplicably tonight in a fire or in a sneak attack by the rebel army. Whichever is more important, he still takes it lightly. The name of the people in Xiancheng is no longer Dynasty, but Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The second day. The city lord's mansion, which was not held accountable by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, quickly issued several bulletins. The content is pretty much the same, just the requirements Jia Yan mentioned. There are also provisions regarding the entire Xiancheng business environment improvement system. This is something for laymen to watch, and most people cannot understand it. But judging from the few clauses that they could understand, even the semi-literate residents who didn't know a few words of Dou understood that the sky in Xiancheng had changed overnight. The city lord has become the puppet of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. As for the government, I am afraid they no longer have any actual rights over Xiancheng. In name only, the people are still the subjects of the dynasty, and there are also people from the official government who are in charge of the order of Xiancheng. Privately, it has become the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in charge of everything. Businessmen are profit-seeking. They are even willing to sell their souls for huge profits. Not to mention Xiancheng, even the rebels dared to go there to do business openly. Therefore, After Xiancheng Galaxy Chamber of Commerce officially resumed business and apparently negotiated peace with the imperial court, several groups of merchants rushed over immediately. Haha, Master Jia Yan, I knew it was auspicious for you to go to the capital. People have their own destiny. Heroes see the same thing. I also think that Chairman Jia Yan, a noble man, has God's help. As expected. Several businessmen and Jia Yan were chatting at home in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce living room. When Jia Yan negotiated with them, he never showed the slightest magnanimity of a top expert, nor did he use his strength to oppress them. Because these are the largest trading partners of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in the past 10 years. Thank you for the awards. Now is the time for our Chamber of Commerce to explain clearly to the Imperial Court. Our Chamber of Commerce wants to expand its business. I wonder if you have the courage to do business with our Chamber of Commerce again. Oh, this is a dream come true, but I don't know to what extent Master Jia Yan's so-called business expansion is expanded. Naturally, it will be expanded to the limit. The initial goal set by me is 10 times the previous one. Of course, if we can achieve more, the merrier. 10 times. There was a sound of gasping for air. Moreover, several businessmen with close relationships looked at each other with evasive eyes. They have long wanted the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to expand its operations, but the output of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is really too low. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's explanation has always been that the channel cannot bring so many goods. As a result, not only the expensive items of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce were extremely expensive, but the price doubled several times or even dozens of times outside Xiancheng. Moreover, because the scale of the entire mall was too small, the upper echelons of the dynasty gradually became stuck in the past 10 years. For all transactions, MTHE products of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce that they sell often end up in the pockets of the nobles and upper-class people of the dynasty. Moreover, these upper-class people deliberately kept the prices stuck. In the end, they, the merchants, made some money, but they made less and less. From the hugely profitable industry at the beginning, they can only make twice as much money today. Of course, this is a lot. If you want to increase the transaction volume 10 times, your Chamber of Commerce must provide a considerable number of products, otherwise. Someone deliberately said this to test. Jia Yan said enigmatically, this Chamber of Commerce has found a new method. It should be possible to achieve 10 times the product, and there may be more improvements, so you don't have to worry about this. All the partners were immediately overjoyed, and some were even so excited that they stood up involuntarily. You know, 10 times the product means 10 times the value. Even if everything is still blocked by the upper echelons of the dynasty, they can still make 10 times more money if the unit price remains unchanged. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3210. Great, President Jia Yan, when will the transaction be possible? It'll be fine in the near future. Jia Yan didn't talk about any requirements. I believe these guys all know that since they boarded the pirate ship of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, they must do their best, otherwise the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will not be easy to deal with. Even the dynasty can't do anything to the Chamber of Commerce. They or any businessman who is not stupid should understand that if he joins the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's profit feast, he must be prepared to take sides, and in some cases, even go against the dynasty. These businessmen are indeed exactly the same as many businessmen on Earth or in the Milky Way. For the sake of profit, they don't care about their family and country. They only want money. It didn't take long. The merchants left happily one by one. Jia Yan, on the other hand, straightened up a bit and welcomed another group of guests. Jia Yan even pays more attention to this group of guests. They are representatives of the powerful forces from overseas. The old man of the immortal sect is the leader. This time he did not appear alone, but brought a group of overseas visitors. President Jia Yan, the real person, should not show his face. The old man of Xianzhou glanced at Jia Yan with sharp eyes, as if he was very doubtful. How could Jia Yan, who seemed to him not very strong, be able to come and go freely in the capital of the dynasty? Legend has it that he even fought against the founder of the dynasty. He also escaped unscathed. This old man from the immortal sect could not guarantee that he could achieve the same results as Jia Yan. I don't dare. It's just that the dynasty has internal and external troubles and doesn't want to provoke forces like this Chamber of Commerce. After all, there is no life or death hatred between us and the dynasty. The old man waved his hand crisply. Don't mention these high-sounding reasons. No matter what, those guys wanted to make your Chamber of Commerce bow. Now that they have eaten their own shit, it is your victory. Jia Yan smiled and said nothing. This is to show your attitude and listen to their intentions. President Jia Yan, you mentioned before that your Chamber of Commerce will go to our place to set up a new Chamber of Commerce, right? You don't have to refuse in a hurry. We will propose a few ways here so that your Chamber of Commerce will not suffer any loss. The old man didn't wait for Jia Yan to say anything, and finished all the words like pouring beans. First, your Chamber of Commerce wants to increase the supply of goods recently. We already know about this. No need to ask where we know it. In short, we know it. We don't ask for much, we will increase the amount 10 times according to the previous share. Secondly, we will be responsible for sending people to escort this 10 times the amount, and you will select a few subordinates to go to the overseas mainland to establish branches. It is also convenient for us to purchase and ensure that we can eat all the goods delivered. We just want a stable bridge, and if we share the share together, we will fight for it again, and even fight to death. Why don't you open a store? We can buy what we want ourselves, or we can hold it in the form of an auction. You can decide the details. This saves both parties trouble. What do you think? In fact, what they want is this new channel to gradually bring the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to the mainland. I don't have full authority to make decisions regarding the Chamber of Commerce. We need to wait for our assessment and foresight before I can give you an answer. Jia Yan's answer was concise and to the point. Earlier, this group of overseas visitors might have thought about Jia Yan. Isn't this Galaxy Chamber of Commerce just one of Jia Yan's words? But these days are different. From their observations a few days ago, they knew that in addition to Jia Yan, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce also had experts who were suspected to be master-level experts. Although it is unlikely to reach the level of Jia Yan, who ventured into the imperial capital and escaped unscathed, he is still a guru, and with Jia Yan as an example, they cannot guarantee whether those suspected guru the strength is unfathomable. In this case, it is understandable for Jia Yan to say that he cannot have full power. The two sides talked about some of the internal affairs of the dynasty that they knew each other, and then asked Jia Yan to give them some of the remaining goods, and then set sail and left Xiancheng. Until he watched the group of people leave, Jia Yan did not show any intention of expanding his business scope. Jia Yan, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is getting better and better, but the guests here are getting more and more terrifying. Chuxing and Jiji arrived at the headquarters of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in less than half an hour. Jia Yan nodded. According to the information we have now, in addition to this dynasty area, there are also vast continental areas in the inner world, as well as various forces. According to the situation they themselves talked about, none of these forces is weaker than from the dynasty. Ji Jiao couldn't help but sigh. If I hadn't been here, I wouldn't have known how deep the sky was, nor would I have known that such a world existed. There is no need to belittle oneself. From the perspective of the native people in the inner world, they are prepared to deal with the entire universe like us, but we cannot represent the entire universe. There are many masters like me in the mere Milky Way. No matter how strong the inner world is, they can still isn't it better than the entire universe. That's right, they are the ones sitting in the well watching the sky. Chu Xing's words indicate a reversal of stance. The smart talker had the intention of underestimating the heroes of the world, but when he first said this, the meaning changed. I can't even imagine how many masters there are in the entire universe. It's like how many galaxies there are in the universe. Even today's galactic technology can't detect them, let alone masters. Looking at it this way, it becomes like sitting in a well and looking at the sky in the inner world. Who makes them want to be on par with the whole universe? If you don't sit in a well and look at the sky, who will sit in a well and look at the sky? You two don't need to discuss this matter. What we are going to discuss today is how our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce should deal with this group of powerful people from other worlds. After all, we cannot represent the entire universe, or even the entire galaxy. We can only represent our Chamber of Commerce. Jia Yan's call brought the two back to reality. This reality is cruel. Their Galaxy Chamber of Commerce seems to be powerful, but they only have the strength of 3 masters. But Jia Yan's strength has been proven. He has reached the top level of the dynasty, and he is probably not as arrogant as the founder of the dynasty. Chu Xingji and Ji Qiao have been in the world for more than 10 years. They have been in and out, and they have always made progress. Presumably, even if they have not reached Jia Yan's strength, they have definitely improved a lot. It's just that it's still hard to deal with all the masters in sight. Well, this Galaxy Chamber of Commerce can still maintain neutrality and act secretly. Overseas, if you really have the spare capacity to transport goods, then you can do it. If you don't have the spare capacity, there is no need to do so. Ji Qiao said. Jia Yan glanced at him and said, the so-called interests of the mainland may far exceed that of the imperial island. If I have spare power, I need to send an expert to take charge there, but there are also many risks. Sir Ji Qiao, are you willing to go? It turns out that Jia Yan was just preparing to say this in a roundabout way. Ji Qiao pondered for a while. Jia Yan's meaning is very clear. Ji Qiao is more shrewd and capable. Although Chu Xing is not bad, but there are better choices, right? Moreover, as a master of ingenuity, he is proficient in all kinds of obscene techniques. In the past, he could also use local materials to develop products and self-protection methods, which was much better than Jia Yan do. Okay, I'll go over then, but I agreed beforehand that I have to have some rest time. After all, I have to return to the galaxy. I'll be stationed for 3 years and then rest for 1 year, or rotate with someone for 3 years. Jiji has its own galactic power and cannot work for the Galactic Chamber of Commerce for a long time. Okay, then let Chu Xing take turns with you. After all, it's hard for me to leave here. Jia Yan also wanted to take a rotation and see the mainland. However, the passage at this time still required his own efforts, and other methods were neither safe nor stable. Chuxing agreed without much thought. Not long after, other economic talents came in to discuss important matters with the 3 of them. In fact, at this stage, Jia Yan and others' limited knowledge is a bit stretched. Jia Yan is even worse than Ji Qiao and Chu Xing. After all, he rules a huge power and has always been more or less exposed to economic and development planning matters, but Jia Yan is completely blind. My 3 gentlemen, according to our advance plan, we can now start arranging economic penetration, because the Chamber of Commerce has reached this point and has also won a certain degree of autonomy. If we don't fight for it now, we will be passive in fighting for it in the future. How to do it? You guys come up with a plan. If we look at it and there's no problem, then we'll do it. Follow the order. Economists quickly retreated. In fact, Jia Yan and other trade channel executives have also considered various methods on how to deal with various resistances and interest obstructions in the other world. The final conclusion was to use the economic and trade war system. If they compete head-on, if nothing else, even if the dynasty attacks the whole country, the trade zone will be a complete failure. It's really not a joke. Jia Yan doesn't have much effect, because the strength of the founder can offset Jia Yan's strength to a certain extent. Of course, when the war actually starts, there may be dynasties all over the subspace, and his strength is almost unsolvable to a certain extent. But the situation at that time was definitely very different from today. Maybe overseas mainland forces sent troops. Or maybe the dynasty has united with the far west, far north, underground barbarians and other tribes. After all, things will change. So Jia Yan and the others finally used a more cultural fighting method. There is no such thing as suppressing cigarettes, but the real effect is definitely no worse than launching a war. Jia Yan's hometown, Earth, had such a war in ancient times. Including the seemingly bloody history of Western colonialism, in fact more economic methods were used, coupled with the practice of pulling one faction to fight another, which worked wonders, and the weak defeated the strong often. There are also examples of pure economic crushing. For example, the Ming dynasty in China implemented a strict maritime ban, but it still could not withstand the continuous inflow of cheap silver from the Americas from overseas. This eventually led to soaring economic prices and economic collapse. Of course, this is okay. It involves corrupt courts, natural and man-made disasters and other factors, but that is another story. However, how is it similar to today's dynasty? As long as the dynasty controls the economic lifeline, it will be difficult for the dynasty to attack us with all its strength. Jia Yan doesn't know much about economic matters. He only knows that there are many forces in space that use economic and trade conditions to fight against the enemy. After seeing the complete information drawn up, he couldn't help but sigh. Professional matters must be left to professionals. The only problem now is that the amount of goods he transports limits the speed of this process. It is indeed time to speed up the import of goods, and now there are a large number of factories operating locally. After a few years, a large number of products can be localized, and we have implemented a complete technical blockade. A product can be divided into dozens or even dozens. Hundreds of industrial chains mean that the factors of production are completely in the hands of the Chamber of Commerce. It will take countless years for the natives of the imperial dynasty to develop with our technology. Jia Yan lamented that it was really bad luck for the dynasty to meet professionals like him. During the Industrial Revolution on Earth, the West was only a little ahead of other civilizations, crushing the whole world. It was common for small countries to rule half of the world. But now, the scientific and technological capabilities in the hands of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce cannot cope with the industrialization of the dynasty. A country of influence that no one has entered yet, is more than 10 generations of technology ahead. Want to copycat or learn more about it? First understand that there are 10 billion electronic components in a square centimeter chip. This is still the most basic. There are also photonic chips, quantum chips, gravity chips, countless chips to assemble an ordinary industrial machine. A machine must have tens of thousands of certain components or similar components, and each function and manufacturing process is different. You learn it, let's see how you learn it. Jia Yan wanted to laugh when he thought of that scene. If the basic forces and physical conditions of the two worlds were not different, Jia Yan would have directly moved into the existing factory. Unfortunately, the laws of physics are not the same. Now 10 years have passed, and a large number of technicians have developed many technologies. The basic tools and machines fit here. It's been 10 years, and it's almost time to take action. Bring the dynasty into a period of industrialization, and use the Industrial Revolution to divide them, suppress the imperial power, use products and economic trade to suppress all disobedient forces. Not only that, even the overseas continent, he. Jia Yan was filled with laughter as he thought about it. I can't help it, this scene is too beautiful. But will the reality really go as he wishes? It's really hard to say. After all, people with terrifying strength will resist. It all depends on whether there are locals who are forward-thinking. Dad, how about my defense stack? Buzz. The Great Realm of Gods. Find the bookstore. A border port planet has now become the most prosperous border area in the Divine Realm. It is close to the trade area, and the housing prices and living costs there are too expensive. After all, everything is transported from the outside world, which has led to many merchants temporarily living in the nearest major planets in the Divine Realm. This planet is one of them. And many people from Earth come to live here. The Geo family is one of them. Of course, not everyone comes, but there are often family members who come to do business, or who come to ask for advice from their elders, and then go back to Earth or other Orion Arm planets. The two only exceptions are Georong and Gia 11. Georong saw hope and turned down all Orion Arm Earth Alliance positions, concentrating on practicing the yin-yang formation here. Being close to his father Jia Yan, he always found opportunities to ask for advice. His strength has been evident over the years. Has gone up in the past. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3211. As for Jia 11, he actually didn't want to stay, but his father Jiarong was dragging him along. Yes, this move of yours should be the method your grandpa taught you last time, but you are not strong enough, and you still dare to imitate your grandpa. Let's take a look at this move. A streak of blue color fell from the sky, and when it hit the front of the large defensive formation, it suddenly shrank and turned into a needle-like shape, piercing deeply into the large color of the defensive formation, piercing through it with the force of breaking a bamboo. More than 10 formations of defense came to the tip of Jia 11's nose. I surrender. Jia 11 was a little unconvinced, but still had no choice but to shake her head and give up. You are already very good. You have learned this trick from your grandfather very skillfully. What's the use of being proficient? It's not like I've been defeated by you, Dad. This move of yours is the formation transformation technique taught by Senior Edisha. It's really very exquisite. You said, Grandpa, in the formation, isn't it? Isn't it worse than Aunt Edissa? Shut up, how can you say anything about your grandpa? You just didn't understand his tricks. Oh. Jia 11 nodded helplessly. Jiarong said intriguingly, actually, you and I may not be suitable for your grandfather's methods. After all, he is much stronger than me. Learning his moves may get twice the result with half the effort. From now on, you will also switch to practice Aditha Senpai's formation skills, and don't tell your grandpa that I said this. Ah, okay, I won't tell. Jia 11 looked deeply at her father, then nodded. See, even Dad thinks that Aditha Senpai is stronger than Grandpa. At least that's the case in terms of formation ability. The two of them already have the genetic talent of formation and have been practicing for more than 10 years. How can they not see Jia Yan's reality? It's just that Jia Yan's prestige is so strong that the two of them have been immersed in Jia Yan's techniques in the past few years, and even thought that it was the Holy Scripture. It wasn't until I got to know the true heritage of Edisha that I was astonished. There is no other way. Who made Edisha's progress really rapid in the past 10 years? It is not an exaggeration to say that she is the current yin-yang formation master. His temperament is still a bit noisy, and the child's temperament is extremely serious. Keek, catch me. Look, it's said that CAO has arrived. A girl in white, wearing a cute and fluttering pink skirt, rushed in from the door of the giant training room, laughing like silver bells all the way. Behind is a cute pink fish, about 2 meters in size, chasing after it with a cute smile. Adisha Senpai. Stop chasing, we need to be dignified. Edisha quickly stood firm and acted like an old-timer, but the face of the girl who was about 15 years old was too immature, and it was a bit funny. Yeah, Majesty Xiao also stopped. Hello, seniors. Jia 11 also calls this one senior and that one senior, without any psychological pressure. But Jia Rong is different. Edisha can say that Xiao really can't shout, and it doesn't matter which one of the two is older. Edisha Jiarong even called Edisha by name in front of her face. In name, he was the same generation as Edisha Xiao. It's just that her strength is a bit different from Edisha's. Well, hello Xiaorong. Edisha put on a senior look. Who asked her to follow Jia Yan from the beginning, and she had extremely high wisdom from the beginning, and she was more like a senior than Jiarong. Senior, I have a few questions about the formation that I would like to ask. Secondly, I also want Xiao 11 to learn your skills. Okay, I'll teach you. Xiao stood beside him and said, I want to teach you too, so let me teach you too. Edisha pointed at her and said, you can't do it? You don't even have the gene for transformation. It's been 20 or 30 years, and you are still a respected person. You may not be as powerful as Jiarong, so you are not qualified to teach. Yes, it's been several decades now. Since the new conflict broke out between the Trade Zone Collective and the Dynasty, the situation has stabilized again. Although the Dynasty has been collapsing and entering the era of chaos, the Great Dynasty cannot collapse in an instant. It will take a long process. Moreover, if it really collapses, it will not be a good thing for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. It is better to boil a frog in warm water. This has also led to more than 10 years and a total of 30 years since the establishment of the trade zone, which has become more and more stable. More and more merchants are coming and going, and the unique different world trading model has attracted countless merchants and even adventurers. That's the adventurer. Because although not many people know the name of the inner world, many really big forces still keep rumors about the inner world. When these big forces heard this, a passage to another world. Aren't there a lot of promotion opportunities in it? This is not possible, you must come and take the risk. As a result, in recent years, it seems that among the merchants and regular tourists, there are often a large number of people trying to sneak into the other world. But these people often fail. What Jia Yan wants is the current stability of the inner world, not to allow those with ulterior motives to enter the inner world and destroy the fragile peace they have finally built with the dynasty. So they are all rejected. Moreover, Jia Yan's personal strength, ability, and prestige are sufficient. Judging from the current intelligence distribution area circulating in the trade area, there should not be any ridiculously strong guys coming to compete for the time being. The balance has been stable for more than 10 years. In the past 10 years or so, the most rapidly developing family power in the trading area was actually the Jia family from Earth. There is no way, who makes them almost equal to the prince and party. They are the serious descendants of Jia Yan. Although they seem to be out of touch, their genes are really in the same vein as Jia Yan. And after several decades, it will be enough for the people on Earth to reproduce a new generation of people. Even Jia 11, who was a little kid back then, is now the father of a 10-year-old child. He still looks like a child. Because the Jia family continues to develop, younger generations belonging to the Jia family often come and go on the other side of the world. Jia Yan could call out names, but as the number of people increased, he seemed to be gradually no longer so kind to the younger members of the family. After all, not even a few of the formation gene quotas that many younger generations are eagerly eyeing have been granted. It's one thing for Jia Yan to be busy, but another thing is that he doesn't want to be dragged along by his family anymore. He may be willing to personally teach and cultivate his relatives in the fifth server, but when they exceed the fifth server, the relationship will be ruined. This is also a problem that countless powerful people in the universe have faced. Those top masters who are very old have no relatives for a long time, Because all their immediate family members have passed away, and the younger generations who follow them are really far apart and have no protective feelings at all. Hey, I want to teach you too. Xiao was helpless. She really wanted to pretend to be a senior. But things often go against expectations. When I run up to the children of the Geo family, pretending to be nice turns into playing games with them, making noises together, and integrating perfectly into the group of children. I don't even know what's going on. What can she do? She is helpless. Who told you that you haven't learned the Tao of formation yet? If you were asked to teach the Tao of Yin and Yang, they wouldn't be able to learn it well. Edisha also sneered. The little fish all have pink lips and are unhappy. Jia Yan's teachings to her were completely different from others. Because judging from the current situation, apart from the bug-like improvement method of Aragine, Xiao Yuer's talent is still the highest among all the juniors Jia Yan has come into contact with, bar none. Edisha became extremely powerful after being exposed to the formation Dao, which was an unexpected gain. Xiao Yuer is stronger than the talent of Yin and Yang Dao, and even mastered the talent of subspace. This is why Jia Yan does not consider transforming Xiao Yuer for the time being. Genetic reasons. He really wanted Xiao Yuer to inherit his legacy. And it is probably the only complete clothing store. After she has achieved achievements in Yin and Yang Dao and subspace abilities, she will evolve into the Array gene. In this way, she will probably be very similar to Jia Yan. Of course, it should be impossible to copy the real fighting style. After all, it is impossible to be exactly the same as Jia Yan. But there is also a real involvement with Jia Yan. 2 seniors, I'll let the children come in, and you can give them some pointers. Okay. Jia 11 interrupted Xiao's self-pity with a smile and opened the door to the children's training room on the other side. Then, with a puff of smoke, a dozen little kids ran in. They are of different ages, the older one is 15 or 16 years old and the younger one is only 5 or 6 years old. There are still several children in the Geo family who are less than 5 or 6 years old. It is almost impossible for them to be exposed to cultivation so early. As soon as the good guys came in, the little ones cried and the big ones started fighting, and it was very lively. The 2 little fishes, Adisha, originally carried the majesty of their seniors, but when they saw such a lively scene, their eyes gleamed and they looked like they wanted to blend in. Fortunately, Jiarong, as a grandfather, shouted, and the whole place stopped making noise. Have you forgotten the etiquette? Don't you even show respect to your seniors? I've met Senior Edisha, I've met Senior Xiao. A group of children quickly tidied up their appearance and bowed respectfully to Editha Xiao Yuer. The 2 of them were looking at Edisha with beaming smiles and their eyes curved into the shape of crescent moons. This is not an etiquette prescribed by Jia Yan, but by Jiarong. After all, the family is getting bigger, and the ancestor Jia Yan is obviously a little alienated from the younger generation. It's okay for them, Jia Yan's direct descendants, but the descendants after that will not be able to get as much care from Jia Yan, so they will be separated from other disciples around Jia Yan. Good relationships are also very important. Especially for Adisha, there are now more and more signs that she seems to be slowly becoming a mysterious master who soared into the sky like Jia Yan back then. 3 years ago. Jia Yan was not in charge, and 2 masters from the lower realm lord level also took up positions in the other world. The 2 masters from the realm lord level forced their way into the trade area. Although it was impossible for them to enter the inner world through the passage, destroying them would also destroy the trade area. It's a shame, and your prestige will no longer be there in the future. Several ordinary domain masters guarding the trade area attacked, but what was unexpected was that these domain masters were defeated one by one. The visitor is not an ordinary domain lord. Just when everyone was helpless and humiliated, Edisha, a former master that almost no one thought was extremely powerful, took action. She had spent 30 years laying out the formations and piled up countless billions of formations near the trade area. After activating them, it was like the entire starry sky came to life. It didn't take long before she killed 2 people who were trespassing in the trade area. The powerful domain lord of the passage made a huge splash in one battle, shocking all the little ones nearby. From then on, no one in the entire trading area looked down upon this seemingly carefree, childlike girl again. Therefore, it is quite necessary for the Geo family to maintain respect and maintain good relations. Okay, Edisha will teach you. If you want to learn the formation, come with me. Edisha looked at humanity with her chin arrogantly. Xiao Yu on the side also said quickly, if you want to learn the orthodox yin and yang Tao, come here, senior sister. Yin and yang Tao is the foundation of the formation. If you don't learn the yin and yang Tao, if you learn the formation, you will die before your eyes. Good guys, these 2 are grabbing business. I want to learn the Tao of formation. When I learn on Maido, it is most correct to lay the foundation. More than a dozen children divided into 2 camps and walked towards Edisha and Xiao Yu. It's like this again, this time it's the same thing. After a month, the children you and I teach will compete to see who wins. Okay. The 2 sides were at war with each other and led the children they taught away. Jia Rong and Jia 11 watched the whole process and didn't stop anything. This is a good thing. It puts pressure and motivation within the Geo family. Under competition, there is no guarantee that the family's upward momentum will be maintained in the future. Recently, our family's interests in the trade area have reached their peak and hit the ceiling. Unless you or I make further improvements, or there are a few decent talents among our younger generations, otherwise, this situation will remain for hundreds of years. Years or even thousands of years. Jia Rong sighed. Jia 11 also nodded. The Jia family said that they were Jia Yan's direct descendants, but it was obvious that even if Jia Yan's reputation and strength suppressed them, they still had to rely on their overall strength to gain more benefits. Demon Town Museum. You can't just ask to go to Jia Yan's head every time something happens, right? Even Edisha couldn't invite her to take action every time. This was a waste of friendship. Unable to get the ancestor to take action, and unable to let Edisha or other masters of the yin-yang sect take action. The Jia family had to rely on their own strength. How could they have the strength to fight against them? The current share of interests is entirely due to the major forces holding their noses and giving it up for Jia Yan's sake. If they fight for more, they will stretch their hands too far. To use a simple metaphor, when the elders have a meeting, almost all the territory lord level people, even the galaxy level people who attend the meeting dare not speak, let alone put forward any constructive suggestions. As for the Jia family, they often send Jia Rong, the strongest man, over there, but when he ends up sitting there, hey, the top of the venerable. Although relying on the power of the formation and proper arrangement, it is possible to skip half a star level and reach the primary level of stellar combat power, coupled with the formation secret treasure and life-saving means given by Jia Yan. Even the domain lord level can do nothing to him, but this is still an external force. The real strength is quite different. Many people have already complained. Therefore, the Jia family's interest expansion in this trade channel area has recently stalled, and it has attracted the dislike of many forces. When they see the Jia family, they either overtly or secretly either ridicule them or do not want to meet them. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3212. No one dares to fight you directly, but even if they hate you, the Jia family can't do anything about it. Who makes them weak and they can only rely on their ancestors. By the way, Dad, it's been a long time since I entered the other world since I last entered it. Can we apply to enter next time? I always feel that practicing in the other world is faster. Jia 11 asked. It's not impossible, but it should be very difficult. You know the situation of our Geo family. It is difficult to enter the other world. Our identity and strength make it even more difficult. Now the entire trade zone system framework has been standardized. Well, our application is likely to be stuck at the approval stage. Even our Geo family can't always break the rules. Hearing this, Geo 11 shook her head helplessly. The Geo family is now making progress, but once they really come into contact with the powerful forces in the universe, they find that they are always powerless and have nothing to do. The gap in background is too big, the gap in connections is too big, and the gap in knowledge and resources is also too big. Having a strong backer can get them to this point, which is almost the end. If you go further up, you will either make people angry, or you will break the bottom line and find a real way out for the clan. I don't know what's going on with Grandpa now. Last time I wanted to ask him some questions about cultivation, but he was told he was unavailable. Recently, it is said that the other side of the world has entered a period of rapid development. The dynasty has also sensed something and is getting ready to take action. Your grandfather is probably going to be busy. It is normal for Wuxia to take care of the family. Jiarong shook his head. Speaking of this, Jia 11 remembered another question, and it was the question he had been thinking about. Dad, tell me, after all these years, Grandpa is still staying in the so-called promotion place. How far has his strength come? Jia 11 has always been quite curious about this. But there is no way to draw a conclusion. Because in all his knowledge of life, and in his entire life, Grandpa Jia Yan has always been the strongest in his perception, that is, an existence that has reached its limit. He is already the strongest, and if he becomes even stronger, how strong will he be? For Jia 11, there is no reference at all. Your grandfather, maybe he has become stronger. We can't imagine that kind of state out of thin air. Jiarong thought for a while and shook his head with a smile. He is, in essence, a cultivation maniac. Our progress can never catch up with him, his progress will only be greater and more exaggerated. After hearing this, Jia 11's eyes became excited, and then she quickly lowered her head in disinterest. Although I am Grandpa's heir, and he has praised my talent, the gap between me and him is still too big. Maybe among us, my sister-in-law is the only one who can expect to see the shadow of the territory lord in this life. The sister-in-law he mentioned was Jia Yan's youngest daughter Jia Makiao. The current Jia Makiao is extremely talented. He was taken to the other world to follow Jia Yan. I am afraid that his current strength may also reach the peak of the starry sky level. It will not take too many years to reach the venerable level and be on par with Jia 11 and others. Tomato. You know, although Jia Makiao is an ant, she is 20 or 30 years younger than Jia 11. He is almost 100 years younger than Jiarong. In the early stage, the timeline was written in confusion, but it was pretty much the same. It has been corrected now, sorry. Chiao go get the elusive Dao heart. Good. In this world, there is an ancient building like the ancient China on earth. There is a man in black clothes and black eyes, and behind him is a beautiful girl with the same black eyes and black hair. The girl looks like she is 28 years old, and her whole body is filled with the breath of youth. She is Jia Makiao, the daughter of Jia Yan, who came to the other world and was cultivated by Jia Yan himself. But what he cultivated with his own hands was not the true form of the giant mosquito, but the clone of the Black God. The Black God clone is generally satisfied with this daughter's abilities and talents. It's not earth-shattering, but there is still the possibility of cultivating her. You have been with me for 10 years. Do you miss your mother? Black God Jia Yan took a small piece of Taoist material handed over by Jia Makiao and asked casually. I don't think so, but I know that the temporary separation is for the sake of meeting each other better in the future. Jia Makiao smiled sweetly. Jia Makiao, who inherited Satsumagon's perfect genes, is almost the same as her mother, with a flawless appearance and face, and unlike Satsumagan who was genetically adjusted, she has a lively and fragrant aura of life, plus there is also the powerful talent that comes from Jia Yan's late genetic genes. It can be said that to a certain extent, he is born with a golden key. Strong and smart. Black God Jia Yan also smiled. This child seems to have changed a lot in 10 years, from a little girl to a big girl, and the amount of reading is also increasing day by day. He often reads some ancient Chinese texts or ancient books from the other world, all of which are about philosophy and obscure spiritual knowledge. Class, now she has become more like a literary girl. This illusory Taoist heart has no such classification in this world. In the past 10 years, our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's Science and Technology Organization has discovered the hidden factors of this Taoist heart. It can give strong people illusory abilities in a unique way. Do you want to give it a try? I haven't decided which way to go yet, Dad, just use it yourself. Well. Jia Yan didn't persuade him anymore. Jia Makiao's path has to come from his biological father. After all, many Jia family members are waiting for Jia Yan's true body to undergo gene transformation, and even Jia Makiao is no exception. In the Jia family's thinking mode, all these cultivation techniques are far less useful than the orthodox inheritance from Jia Yan. Even if their physical constitution does not match his natural ability, they are still trying to find ways to obtain Jia Yan's array talent. The Black God clone placed the illusory Dao heart fragment between his palms, shook it gently, and saw wonderful ripples rising, and the Dao heart spiraled into the sky. Jia Yan opened his mouth, and the Dao heart turned into along the thread gradually poured into his mouth. This process takes a while, because it is not that easy to practice avatars. Jia Makiao took a few steps back and silently watched his father's practice. After watching for a long time, he walked to a distance, took a few books from the antique bookshelf, and held them in his arms to read. If they just live this kind of life, they can live in seclusion in the other world until they die without being disturbed. After all, with the physique of Earthlings, they can just find a tree hole to build a home or develop a city without anyone noticing. It's like a small wooden hut. Xiaoqiao, today's statistics meeting is about to begin, will you come over? Just come. Suddenly, a soft voice came from outside the door. Jia Makiao put down his book, said something to the Black God clone who was still practicing with his eyes closed, and pushed the door open. There were several young people who looked like Earthlings waiting outside the door. It is naturally impossible to live in seclusion in this world. Jia Yan asked her to come here to train her. But it is true that her name is anonymous. No one knows Jia Makiao's true identity. She relies on herself for everything here. Others know nothing except that she has a powerful father who lives in the house to practice. Yesterday, another good news came. The imperial dynasty fought against several military fronts and had a big financial flaw. The people we deployed proposed a debt law at the court, which means issuing official debts to the people. This clause has been approved by the imperial dynasty. The ruling and opposition parties unanimously agree that some people are even ready to be extremely greedy. Hey, once we let go of the debt terms, we'll have a way to make them happy. Jia Makiao entered the statistics conference room. It was smoky inside, with some people smoking and others banging on the table. It was a chaotic scene. She didn't take it seriously, walked across the street and alley with the information in hand, and entered her seat. Aren't these people from Earth? What achievements have you made recently? This area is relatively similar to the work area of the Homo race, and the size is not too different. Many of them are humanoid life forms from the Orion arm. At this time, several young people saw the Earthlings in place and came forward with a smile. Don't be acquainted with them. Beside Jia Makiao, someone whispered quietly. She nodded. The status of Earthlings is very unique. Even a little twisted. The senior management has no say, but they have a great say. They also have a lot of power in the middle level discussion, but they can never come up with effective plans and techniques, and they cannot solve any problems. People at the bottom of the earth rarely hold positions. Even if some hard-working people go to work at the bottom, they often have little ability to do anything. Don't misunderstand that people on earth are pampered. There are still many ambitious young people who want to do serious things. But it's still the same old saying, and it's also the same old problem. The rise of people on earth is too rapid. Without any cultural, economic, qualification, or development accumulation, when things really happen, they will be completely blind. For things like experience, you don't just have to rely on your race to have an extremely powerful backer, and you just increase the experience out of thin air. If you don't rely on yourself to think, if you don't rely on yourself to hit the wall again and again, you won't be able to learn many things by studying. What's more, the people on Earth are not the smartest race, or in other words, they are not as smart as the interstellar races who are famous for their intelligence. It is a compliment for people on Earth to say that they are smart and intelligent. Therefore, if they are really mixed into the work group of all races, their status will become very awkward. Many people look down upon it. I have a report here, it's economic. It is said that people on Earth are very good at finance, right? Take a look, don't hide it, give me some advice. Although the young man was of the humanoid race and looked like a human, he was over 5 meters tall. Compared with the size of the creatures in the other world, there is actually not much difference between 1 meter and more than 5 meters, and they can indeed be confused. Mosquito looked at the young man, his beautiful eyes with a calm meaning made him shiver slightly. It is clear that this little girl is only at the top of the starry sky level, but she makes him feel threatened by the instinct of a venerable level. Mosquito said nothing and took the statistical report and started reading it. The young female earthling next to her opened her mouth, but when she saw that she had already made a move, she sighed and said nothing. She also has starry sky level strength. After obtaining the simplified version of Yin-Yang Dao training skills, the entire Orion Arm teenagers received a huge increase in strength, and the people on Earth were no exception. Teenagers generally experienced a great improvement in strength. A very special young individual, he is extremely talented and can even reach the starry sky level before he turns 50. Mosquito is in his 20s and has reached the pinnacle of starry sky level. It is not impossible for him to be top-notch. But no one knows that she is not practicing the simplified version of Yin and Yang Dao, and her strength and subsequent development potential are completely different from those of ordinary people who practice the simplified version of Orion Arm. Browsed the content quickly. Mosquito handed the intelligence paper back to the other party, and then said, "The large amount of data above shows that the manufacturing industry of the imperial dynasty has begun to decline sharply. We can start to adjust the stockpiling strategy for the most affected agriculture and logging industries, and the northern land the climate impact is intensifying. I judge that there will definitely be a big famine there this year. And the famine will affect the actions of the rebels in the north. They will definitely go south to steal warmer territory. In other words, there will definitely be a big war in the north of the dynasty this year. Our Chamber of Commerce can be well prepared to sell military products, but of course we need to make preparations in advance and raise the prices of some key products, so as to maximize profits." "Hey, is there really something?" The young man was stunned. Mosquito remained silent. "She wears a pair of glasses and is not nearsighted. It just makes it even more difficult for some people who may know her to recognize her true face. But this pair of glasses gave her some extra temperament out of thin air." "Well said." Next to him, a young man who was not an earthling, but just like an earthling, clapped his hands and stood up. In fact, in addition to this, we can also see traces of the dynasty's internal turmoil from this table. Many industries are shrinking their balance sheets, and if we look at their more prosperous industrial sectors, almost every one of them has the shadow of our galaxy chamber of commerce. Inside, that is to say, if we operate properly, we can cause a major internal turmoil in the dynasty this year, and may even shake their country. Mosquito pushed up his glasses, non-committal. Of course she saw it too. However, this group of young people discussed this matter a lot, but it was useless. They are just a group of children from a big family who came here to transfer money. The real humanoid core meeting was held in another place. Today they came and said it was a meeting. At most, only one or two discussed proposals could make it to the core meeting table. No real high-level person can even analyze this content. Hello, nice to meet you. I am the eldest son of the Northern Earl of the Orion Arm Empire. I will definitely inherit the family business in the future. Which family on Earth are you from? Many people were moved. The well-known large-scale national forces in the Orion Arm, except for the Earth Alliance, which is both strong and weak, are undoubtedly the great empire. It can be said that this national force is the real mainstay of the entire Orion Arm. As the son of an Earl, Lucen is sure to be in charge of power in the future. Hello, my name is Chiao. Nice to meet you. Mosquito didn't feel particularly disgusted or happy, so he stretched out his hand generously and shook hands with the other party. As a child of the Geo family, she spent her childhood in various public or private meetings. Both parties know that the other party is a person with status. The son of an earl of a great empire is naturally more powerful, but who is the score compared to? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3213. A young man with such magnanimity on earth must be born into a big family. In this regard, the descendants of counts from the great empire may not dare to compare. Who makes the earth the de facto leader of the Orion Arm? You guys are all people with unique opinions. Why don't we go and sit somewhere else? I just got some good things for you to take a look at. Lucen invited with a smile. Even the 5-meter-tall foreign youth was invited. But his target was the girl with glasses in front of him. In fact, he has been following this unsmiling girl for several years. Although he didn't know the girl's true family background, her temperament couldn't deceive anyone. Due to population reasons, there were only so many big families in the upper echelons of the earth. If he really wanted to inquire, he could find out, but he didn't do so. The custom of intermarriage between Earth people and many Orion Arm human races has begun 100 years ago. Facts have also proved that Earth people and people from the Great Empire have an inexplicable genetic compatibility. When the two combine to produce offspring, it is almost impossible to have any problems. In other words, the two are naturally intermarrying races. Coupled with the political status of the Earth Alliance and the de facto hegemony of the Great Empire, as early as more than 100 years ago, there have been countless intermarriages between the upper echelons of both parties, and this incident has also become a good talk. And most of them are men of a certain status on Earth who marry women from prominent families in the Great Empire. There are very few nobles of the Great Empire who marry women from Earth. People on Earth are not stupid. Earth is the richest and most prestigious country in the Orion Arm, so why marry outside? Even the second largest empire can't do it. Therefore, many aristocratic men from big empires are crazy about wanting women from Earth. Regardless of their status, they marry some small stars from Earth, female video hosts with small traffic, or even girls from the lower class. Then they go back and pretend to be noble ladies from a certain family on Earth, and brag about it. Special blow. Now, Lucen recognized at a glance that Krikchiao, who had a very different temperament from others. She must have been born noble. Although her temperament was not expressed externally, her condescending attitude towards others and things was clearly revealed. If he had the chance to win an intermarriage with her and return to the Empire, he would definitely cause a sensation. Even if she is just the daughter of one of the top families on Earth, she, the son of an earl, is proud enough. In this way, the earl's succession will be more stable. Mosquito finally went to the place Lucien called together with this group of young people from the human species. The world here is too big. The place where they are staying now is just the core area of a factory. A casually defined area of 20,000 kilometers is enough to accommodate millions of workers of all races. What's more, the current population is only tens of thousands at most. Some children are already the second generation from outside. They are children born in the outside world to foreign couples. Since they were born, they have only known the outside world and have never been to the Milky Way. Everyone, this way, please come in. A wooden building covering an area of 100 kilometers stood in front of him. Lucien let Mosquito and others inside. This building is so tall that if it were placed on the Earth, the top of it, which is dozens of kilometers high, would have to go to outer space. But the world here is ordinary, and some low grasses are much taller than this. Everyone entered, and then Mosquito frowned slightly. Inside is a seemingly large space, but it only accommodates a few large rooms. There are several huge humanoid creatures imprisoned that can only lie down or sit down. They are the little humans in the other world. However, in the eyes of the human race in the Milky Way, each of them is more than 10 kilometers tall, which is quite eye-catching. This is... Mosquito couldn't help but make a sound. In fact, a certain guess has vaguely arisen in my mind. You can also call the workers I collected, slaves. Lucien smiled strangely. As expected. Many people present expressed disgust. But there are also quite a few people who are very interested. Over the past few decades, as the galaxy has entered the other world, the population has become larger and larger. In the past 10 years, Jiayan has increased the transportation volume tenfold. The personnel are mixed and the quality is uneven. More and more people are entering the other world for pleasure. More. They come here just for profit, while the children of the family come here to get gold and achieve a certain level of merit and return home to compete for status. Even after arriving here, they still did not forget their glory and wealth, and they had already played tricks. Many members of the Armed Chamber of Commerce who are traveling outside often arrest a large number of local beings into the camp in the name of escorting them. They have various names, some are for physical research, some are simply captured as laborers, and some are just as if they are being beaten. It was recorded on the roster and secretly passed into the hands of various powerful people. We are all human species, or in other words, the human species specified in the trade zone. So generally speaking, we look very similar to these lowly indigenous people in the other world. Don't you want to have such a burly slave? But I don't like the word slave. It reminds people of primitiveness and savagery, someone said immediately. Lucien shook his head, then call them servants, etc. The name is just a symbol and cannot change their actual status. Here at the station, they are slaves. Sorry, I don't like this kind of thing, I quit. There were several humanoids who didn't like the scene and chose to quit, but no one stopped them. Mosquito was about to turn around, but after thinking about it, he stayed. Lucien specially observed Mosquito, and when he saw that she did not leave, he was immediately filled with joy. Actually, you don't have to feel guilty. Our armed forces will not arrest local indigenous people at will. The little humans here are the thieves who wanted to steal the goods of the Chamber of Commerce a few days ago. This is still our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. With their little humans, if their identities were stolen from ordinary people in the other world, they would have been slapped to death long ago. We are really merciful that we did not take their lives. Someone immediately raised his eyebrows. Nominally civilized people in the Milky Way, even if they accept their status as superiors in their hearts, they must behave in a way that they cannot accept the barbaric slave-catching behavior, otherwise they will lose their status. Now that it sounds like there's a legitimate reason, it doesn't matter. This is the little human race I spent a lot of money to buy last time. If anyone wants it, you can make an offer. I plan to do this business for a long time in the future. Even if I lose a little money at the beginning, I can sell it to you and build a reputation. They can help you with your work, serve as sandbags for practicing martial arts, serve as walking mounts, and even allow them to perform tasks that are inconvenient for you to perform. The food consumed every day is not at all relevant to the rich resources of the other world. That's it. When people from the Milky Way galaxy come to this other world, it is like discovering a treasure mountain. Maybe the local people in the other world grow food, but the output is not enough for them to eat, but with the support of the Milky Way's agricultural technology, a small piece of land can grow hundreds of times the food produced by the people in the other world. Food and grass are naturally not a big problem. Some people started to feel excited and hesitated to choose. Miss Jiao, why don't you choose one too? There just happen to be a few female mini-humans in it. See if any of them are satisfactory. Lu Sen came forward to show his courtesy. To be honest, he was not exaggerating. After all, he was born in a noble family. The discomfort caused by saying the word slave just now was almost completely resolved by the reasonable explanation that followed. His conduct as a human being is quite refreshing. Jiao Maqiao nodded casually. Xiaoqiao, do you really want it? Asked the earthling female colleague next to me. Have a look. Jiao Maqiao led his female companion and started dancing together in the hall. The place was too big, and after the dozen or so human race groups that came in separated, it was completely empty. These little female humans really look a lot like us. This was not the first time that Jiao Maqiao had seen a small human race, but it was the first time that he had observed them at such a close distance. Across the cage, several female mini-humans had their hands tied and sat motionless inside. People from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, you can do whatever you want to me. Can you let my two sisters go? Suddenly a female mini-human rushed to the cage and said to Jiao Maqiao. I'm sorry, it's not me who has the final say here. Jiao Maqiao shook his head calmly. It's all my fault that they put themselves in danger. If I had known that your galaxy merchant had such power, I wouldn't have stolen from you. The female mini-human showed a sad expression and returned to the depths of the cage. Sister, I don't blame you. We have been wandering in the mountains for so long. If you hadn't supported us by stealing, we might have died in the mouths of ferocious beasts. Another comforted the younger female mini-human. She. Tomato. Jiao Maqiao watched their conversation, pondered for a moment and asked, what's your name? Me, the begging female little human paused and said, my name is Wu Pilot. Wu Pilot, I seem to have heard of it somewhere. Jiao Maqiao was stunned for a moment, but the memory was too weak, so he quickly thought that he had remembered it wrong and threw it away. Let's do this, Wu Pilot, I can buy you and your sister, but there are only two of them. I can't help the others. Thank you, why don't you buy me, buy my two sisters, they will definitely be able to do things for you. Wu Pilot clearly saw that Jiao Maqiao was not a bad person at heart. It must be you. As for who the other one is, you choose yourself. Although Jiao Maqiao is quiet, he has the air of a father when he has made up his mind, and his tone of voice makes people dare not refuse. Wu Pilot was startled. Not long after, she chose the youngest sister, who was less than 5 kilometers tall and looked like a 7 or 8-year-old girl. The other sisters had the ability to survive on their own, but she had to take care of this girl herself. Good. Your Highness Lu Sen, I have selected the two female mini-humans over there. The price will be as per the commercial price. No, just treat it as a gift to you. If you don't accept the money, we may not be friends. Oh well. Lu Sen reluctantly accepted Jiao Maqiao's money. Then Jiao Maqiao and his female companion walked out, followed by two huge human bodies. As Lu Sen said goodbye, he also hinted that he wanted to invite Jiao Maqiao to some gatherings and other events in the past few days, but he was declined politely and bitterly. "You will live with me from now on. I have a fairly big house on the other side of the station. As long as you work hard, I won't be too harsh on you." Jiao Maqiao is not a female bodhisattva. She knows that certain grey industrial chains of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce are indispensable. It is these industrial chains that help the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce solve the imminent labor problem. Even her father will not touch it easily. Yes. Wu Baila's eyes were sharp for a moment, and she wanted to take action when she walked to a deserted place. But the vague sense of crisis in the dark kept locking her, causing her to give up her escape plan in despair. These people from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, how could there be no protection in her own territory? Besides, even if she defeated the two little ones at her feet, where could she escape? Elder sister. The little sister stood close to Wu Paila, trembling a little. "Don't worry, my sister is here." Wu Paila vowed in her heart that she would definitely take good care of her sister. This sister is not actually her biological sister. Many years ago, she was already a small human being who worked independently. Her parents also passed away during the migration. The so-called sisters are just girls from the same tribe, more or less. Less of a blood relationship. The original tribe seemed to be in the Zihao forest, and even seemed to overlap with the current location of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. However, 100 years later, things have changed. Wu Paila looked at the unfamiliar scenery around her, feeling sad and tears rolling down her face. "Don't worry, Ci Jiao is not an abusive person. If you work hard with her, you will definitely live a better life than you do now." The female companion turned back to Wu Paila and said, then looked at Jiao Maqiao and said, "Then I will go back to my home. You try to see if the little human is useful. If it works, I will buy one next time." "Yeah. See you tomorrow." Jiao Maqiao nodded. The female companion left, and Jiao Maqiao looked at Wu Paila, who was wiping tears. "Do you hate us galactic people?" she asked suddenly. Wu Paila stopped her movements and replied with red eyes, "I don't hate you." "Why?" "I hate what you are doing. We, the little humans, are living like rats on the street. It would be better if we were caught by you. But if we are caught by other races, we will either serve as food or as coolies. In short, it will be miserable." Jiao Maqiao understood, nodded again, took the lead and said nothing. The two little humans behind her could catch up with her in flight just by walking. "Do you think it is necessary for the dynasty to exist if you want to change the status quo of the small human race?" Jiao Maqiao asked again without looking back. Wu Paila paused and said angrily, "It's not the fault of the dynasty. We are small and not strong enough. Without the dynasty, it would be even worse than it is now, and the entire clan might be exterminated. It's not the fault of the dynasty. If there was a better system and a better status, would you little humans be willing to rise up?" Wu Paila always felt that the tiny galactic woman in front of her was talking to her about something outrageous. She thought again and again, "Of course I would if there was such a possibility, but our little human race is useless. Our tribe used to make a living in this mountain forest, but was later wiped out by a mountain race. The Great Elder even joined the opponent's third party. None of the top 5 have been defeated." Jiao Maqiao heard her introduce that she had lived nearby, and when she thought of something, her eyes finally became a little strange. "It's National Day again, and I wish you all a happy National Day." Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3214. But she decided to continue the topic. What if you had power? Would you choose revenge, or would you choose to use your own power to bring peace to the dynasty, and continue to devote yourself to that peace. If I had that kind of power, of course I would be willing to sacrifice myself for peace. I believe that no one in the entire small human race would be a bad person. Wupila replied loudly. Before Geomakiao could respond, a smile came from the huge wooden house ahead. Well said. The figure of Black God Jiayan jumped out from it like lightning and thunder, his eyes tightly fixed on the two little human women who were led by his daughter Geomakiao. To be precise, it is locked on Wupila. Dad! Geomakiao suddenly shouted in fear. She was not afraid of Jiayan scolding her for buying a small human slave. Everyone in the base knew about this matter. Jiayan had argued with her several times, from economic, humanistic, philosophical, and even humanistic perspectives. In the end, both parties agreed on this. What she was afraid of was that Jiayan had fallen in love with this little human race, otherwise she had never seen her father's clone staring at an outside female like this. Jiao, you did a great job. Jiayan looked at Geomakiao with a confused smile, which made Geomakiao feel tingly in his heart. Oh, then I took them in. Go in, by the way, let them get ready, and then come to see me. Okay, okay. Geomakiao screamed in his heart. Dad, are you really going to betray me? Mom has been waiting for you at home, and she is almost a slut. You are so carefree. But looking back, this shouldn't be the case. Dad's ability and charm cannot be overshadowed, otherwise I wouldn't have clung to him as if I were a stickler. No matter how low my vision is, my father will never look down on the little humans at the level of mere venerables. Even though she was at the venerable level and had the advantage of size, Geomakiao, who was at the top of the starry sky, had the confidence to defeat her with just a few moves. Who was that just now? This is my father. From now on, you will call me master. Yes. Wupila trembled slightly. The appearance of Jiayan just now made her feel a kind of panic coming from the depths of her soul. It was indeed a big shot. Dad, they are washing and getting ready. What do you want to do with them? While the two small human women were entering the large creature's bathroom, Geomakiao came to Jiayan's clone, who was holding a book ready to read. Jiayan looked at her and smiled. What? You are a little guy, and you are worried that your father will fall in love with you. No, no, I'm just curious. Geomakiao blushed. Only in front of her father, Geomakiao was the quirky little girl she was at first. That Wupila is an old friend of your father and I when we first came to the other world. I first looked for their tribe when I returned to the other world, but there was no news from them. I didn't expect that you accidentally found them. It's really fate. Ah. She is your old friend, Dad. Isn't she my senior? Fortunately, I am not rude. Only then did Geomakiao react, secretly thinking that it was a good thing. Don't worry, I won't reveal my identity to her. I'll wait until I return to meet her. My identity is still secret after all. Although many people know the Black God clone, it is still relatively rare in the trade area. It is very useful as a hidden chess piece. In the afternoon, under a lush green grass forest, Jiayan sat on the top of the leaves, flipping through a book, drinking pure natural dew, and happily accepted the visit of two little human women. Hello, sir. My name is Wupila. Wupila led her sister in a respectful salute. Wupili, I heard from Jiao that you were once a resident of this Zihao forest, right? Why did you move? Before, there was an attack from the foreign tribes in Zihao forest, so we moved. However, other races attacked on the way. The Great Elder was killed by the enemy, and our tribe was separated. Some went to Xiancheng, and some fled to in other forests. A few sisters and I were making a living in the nearby woods, and accidentally offended the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, so. Wupila said clearly her experience after breaking up with Jiayan. It's very simple. After being separated like this, even Jia Yan opened the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and couldn't find any trace of them. This shows how difficult it is to find people in the other world, especially small humans without identities. Has the Great Elder passed away? Jia Yan couldn't help but sigh after hearing this. Does the Master know our Great Elder? Wu Pila was surprised. No matter what she thought, she could not imagine that Jia Yan was actually the giant Mosquito Jia Yan. This is clearly the little human race in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Well, I must have met him once before. It's a pity. He is a wise man who cares for others. The Great Elder died to save our younger generation. If he escaped alone, he would definitely have a chance. When mentioning the Great Elder, even after many years, Wu Pila couldn't help but shed tears in her eyes. Since you are an old friend, I will take you in, and I won't treat you as a slave or anything. At most, I will help you with some housework. I can also teach you certain skills, okay? Jia Yan is still willing to help the villain tribe that once helped him. Thank you, Master, and, also, I ask Master to save my other sisters. Okay, it shouldn't be a problem if I ask Xiao to come forward. Wu Pila immediately burst into tears of joy. She originally thought that after being bought by a young man from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, she would be destined to live a life of working as a cow and a horse. Unexpectedly, luck and misfortune depended on each other, and she ushered in another turning point. The next day. What? Xiao Qiao, do you want to buy those other female mini-humans? Don't you have any special hobbies? Jiao Maqiao's earthling female companion was a little dumbfounded after hearing her request. It's not me, my dad asked me to buy it. Jiao Maqiao replied angrily. Your dad? The female companion's eyes suddenly widened. She had met Assassin, the father of Sci-Fi. He looked very handsome, and she would have thought he was a handsome uncle in his 20s. He was also the one she fell in love with a few years ago. I didn't expect that such an imposing elder would have such a hobby. All kinds of dramas have emerged in her heart, which cannot be described in pictures. Don't get me wrong, my dad has unique research. Understand, I won't talk nonsense everywhere. When Jiao Maqiao heard this, she felt that her female companion must have misunderstood, but she couldn't explain it clearly, so she ignored it. Anyway, it was the collapse of her father's reputation. What did Jiao Maqiao have to do with her? She never thought that as the daughter of BT, she would definitely be looked at differently by others. The two of them flew up together and headed towards the place where slaves were held in Lucerne. Earthlings and humanoid races live together in this area, and the creatures that come and go are all similar in appearance, but there are some differences in some details, such as elves, ghost-faced tribes, and several knives stuck in their bodies. There are various races, but because they are similar to people on Earth, they are all classified into humanoid races. What kind of wind has brought you here again, Miss Ci-Chiao? After Lu Sen heard the report from his subordinates, Ci-Chiao came to the door again. He felt that marriage had come to the door, and he rushed out of the door confused. Jiao Maqiao is not only beautiful, she is so beautiful that she is perfect. Even if she wears glasses, she still exudes a charm that makes people unable to look directly. Lu Sen often dreams about what would happen if Jiao Maqiao took off her glasses. Of peerless beauty. Not to mention, she carries a book wherever she goes, and her intellectual charm is even more intense. The combination of the two is unbearable for any male of any race. Hello, Your Highness Lu Sen, I'm sorry to bother you, but I also want to buy a relative of the female tribe member yesterday. Jiao Maqiao was outspoken. You still want to buy? Okay, let's go in and take a look. Lu Sen was startled, a little confused about Jiao Maqiao's hobbies, but he still opened the door to the slave's house. There are several more small creatures in this space today, and there seem to be a few fewer small humans from before. It seems that they were bought by someone like Wu Pilot and others yesterday. This made Chiao Makiao feel slightly nervous, fearing that he would not be able to complete the task assigned to him by his father. Those few are here, but one of them is missing. Lu Sen took Chiao Makiao and the others and flew straight to a cage. 3 female mini-humans related to Upeli were inside, but one of them was missing. Ah, was the younger one bought by someone? Yes, that little human woman was bought by His Highness Pa Shao because of her good martial arts skills. As you know, His Highness Pa Shao is the son of the leader of a powerful clan in the east of the trading area. He lacks someone to accompany him in practicing melee combat. Guard. Mother-in-law. Chiao Makiao looked a bit sad. Please help me bring these female little humans out first, and I will go talk to His Highness Pa Shao myself. Okay, by the way, Miss Chiao, are you free tomorrow night? It is said that there will be a scene of 10,000 lantern grass flying in the grass hill south of the base tomorrow night. I would like to invite a few friends to have dinner at that time. If you are free, you can also come and sit together. Lu Sen spoke in an orderly manner, while his subordinates dilly-dallied, refusing to unlock the key to the cage. It seemed that if Chiao Makiao said he didn't agree, he would use various excuses not to sell Chiao Makiao's little human women, or to sell only 1 or 2 of them. Okay, I'll go, but as we agreed, I don't have much time. My old father at home has strict discipline. Of course it doesn't matter. It will definitely not exceed midnight. Then I will be waiting for your arrival with great anticipation. Lu Sen was overjoyed and quickly motioned to his subordinates to open the door. By the way, they only charged the cost price for capturing the small humans. Of course Chiao Makiao knew what this meant, but she still only paid according to the other party's wishes. If you don't give face to the other party, you may fall out on the spot. Anyway, the Earl's son doesn't care about this little money. Your sister Wu Bailey has entrusted me to take care of you. You don't need to be vigilant. I am good to you because my father is an old friend of your great elder. We have nothing to harm you. With a few words, Chiao Makiao dispelled the vigilance of the 3 little human women who were as frightened as birds. Together with her female companion, she flew to the training ground with the 3 little human beings, allowing them to join Wu Pilot. Then Chiao Makiao looked at the black god Jia Yan who was still sitting cross-legged and practicing. After thinking about it, he flew up and let his female companion go home first, while she flew towards the residence of His Highness the mother-in-law. Since Jia Yan gave her the task, she thought about finishing it before replying. Otherwise, if you encounter some problems, just ask your father for advice. Wouldn't it be useless? Inside the station, she didn't believe there would be any trouble. Then Chiao asked to see me? Did you say something? In the largest training venue in the Pa Shao power settlement area, the crown prince of the Pa Shao clan frowned. No. A response came from the earphones, which made Prince Po Shao even more confused. The long sword in his hand moved at will, and he stabbed 3 times in a row, and 3 canopies of blood flowers bloomed in front of his eyes. Ah! A strong female humanoid with a height of 9 kilometers was knocked away from the wooden stick in her hand. She staggered back a few steps, and there were 3 more blood marks on her bloody body. I'll go out and take a look. You guys can bandage her up. I don't want the sandbag I just bought a day ago to die immediately. Yes, my subordinates guarantee that she can last for more than 3 days. Leaving behind the scarred female humanoid, Prince Pa Shao jumped out of the training area. Trick Chiao. Her identity is extremely mysterious. It is said that she owns a large area of residential land on the edge of the core area. There are sparsely populated areas around 500 kilometers away. She is suspected to be a descendant of a high-level official in the trading area. But what is her identity? Prince Po Shao only owns similar living space. Although he owns the land in the most prosperous place of Po Shao settlement, the value of the two is not in the same level, but this does not prevent him from feeling that Xiao's identity is not the same. Simple. Soon, the two met each other. Miss Xiao, you are still as beautiful as ever. Prince Po Xiao looked behind Xiao and was a little surprised that she didn't have the female companion she always brought with her. Normally Xiao has a good reputation, and everyone watching her grow from a cardamom girl to a young beauty feels like a girl next door growing up. However, Xiao is as cold as ice to everyone and can't talk to anyone. Her attitude is cold, but she has a sense of alienation from people thousands of miles away. In addition, she often brings her best friends and female companions to bookstore, so no one can have much contact with her. Rebirth of the great era of fighting waves? Today is quite an exception as I have no one with me and am alone. Thank you, Your Highness, Prince Po Xiao. It's been a long time since I last saw you. You are becoming more and more like a superior. I believe you will be a good leader of power in the future. Jiao Maqiao speaks very well. After all, she is a literary girl. She just doesn't like to talk at ordinary times. Haha, where am I now? It's not that simple to lead a family. Prince Po Xiao is different from Lu Senator. He is calmer and more mature, and is hardly affected by Jiao Maqiao's appearance. Seeing that Jiao Maqiao just smiled, he asked, I wonder why Miss visited my mother-in-law's residence today. He believed that if Xiao, who didn't like to show off in public, came to visit, he would go to the Three Treasures Hall for nothing. I want to buy an indigenous slave from His Highness the Crown Prince. She is a relative of my newly purchased slave. I am afraid that the slave will not be able to work peacefully in the future, so I thought of granting her wish.